Am I the asshole here for refusing to go to my best guy friend's wedding and telling my parents that I'm going to cut them off? I grew up with my family and another family whose parents were best friends with mine since high school. My parents had me, female 28, and my two older brothers, male 31 and male 35, while their friends had four boys, male 27, 29, 30, and 37. Growing up was pretty nice, but the boys used to pick me up a lot and exclude me during their girls are yucky phase. I wouldn't say that I see the boys as brothers, but maybe as cousins. I was close to the 27 and 29-year-old when we were little. I'll call them Adam and Jake. Until we were 15, we were really close and did a lot together. I don't talk to Jake much anymore. No hard feelings, but he grew up to be a classic tech bro and can be pretty condescending. However, our families are obsessed with the idea of us ending up together. The other guys are already married and Adam's gay. They have always pushed for us to be together, making us go to the store alone at Christmas, telling us both an earlier time to meet at the restaurant for Dad's birthday, talking him up a lot, etc. Then both Jake and I met our significant others. I've been with my fiancé for 5 years, and Jake met his fiancée 3 years ago. Our families have been very disappointed and have not welcomed our significant others warmly. Your families need to get that stick out of their ass. Put the romance novels down and go outside, families, Jesus. One Christmas, I took Jake's fiancée, Tracy, aside and explained the weird family law to her. With Jake, just like we did with my fiancé, we assured her that it was just a weird thing of our family and that Jake and I have not been close for ages and have never had more than a friendly relationship. Ironically, having to stand against our parents did make us a little bit closer. But we come to the problem. Jake and Tracy are going to get married soon, and it's been chaos. Our parents have upped their antics by 2,000%. Family dinners are full of, we thought you two would get married. They brought out a picture that I apparently drew of me and Jake when we were little of us getting married. I suspect that they made it. It didn't look like it was made by an actual child. They were cornering Tracy about making me the matron of honor and letting me wear white. What? Also, his brothers and my sisters joined in, making jokes about us being star-crossed lovers and calling me the missus. It's old, mate. I distanced myself heavily from my family during that time and stopped going home after talking to them did nothing. One day, one of my brothers invited me out. He said it was just my two brothers and I. So, I went to his apartment, and when I arrived, it was Jake's bachelor party. One of his brothers screamed out that the stripper was here. Ew. I wanted to leave, but the next train left close to 12 a.m., and it wasn't the safest neighborhood. So I stayed. They tried to make me drunk, were constantly physically pushing me and Jake together, and even locked us in my brother's bedroom. I could hear loud laughing from the other side. Jake and I didn't talk much. He apologized to me and asked me if I could not come to the wedding as I made Tracy uncomfortable. I completely understood and said that at that point I wasn't planning to go anymore. He offered to drive me home as he was completely sober. When they opened the door, he said we were going home. In their heads, that meant that we were going to be intimate or something because all the cavemen sounds started. The next day, my phone was blowing up. Someone uploaded a video of me and Jake leaving and captioned it, "Finally." It was very awkward. I am clearly uncomfortable, and so is Jake as we exit the apartment and enter his car. There were comments, calls, and texts. Tracy called me crying and cursing me out. Jake called me apologizing and telling me he tried to explain. My mother and his mother sent me a bunch of texts saying how proud they are and that it was about time. My fiancé is understanding, but he wants me to make clearer boundaries with my family. I drove past their house and they were all there. They didn't even let me talk and were just love-bombing me. I started screaming and I told them that Jake and I have never and will never be together, and I will not be leaving my loving fiancé. That I would not be going to Jake's wedding, and if they kept up with this, I would cut every single one of them off because I'm tired and just want to live my life and not their incest fairy tale. By the end of the meltdown, my mother and his mother were crying, and my father just told me to get out. Since then, I've been getting messages from my brothers calling me a witch for treating my family like that because they only wanted the best for me. So am I the asshole here? Edit: no, an Uber was not an option. Taxis and Ubers are ungodly expensive here, thus I take the frickin' train. Also, no, we don't have a car, Tracy was away, and my fiance had a night shift. In the comments, Bella Rose 36 says, not the asshole. Both families are insane, and your brothers are gross for even participating in this disaster. You and Jake have made it clear that you are not interested in each other romantically, and you are currently both engaged to other people. However, both sets of parents and siblings' incessant behavior are adding fuel to the fire and causing a divide, but are blaming you for their disregard and ignorance. I'm baffled and stunned that these adults think that what they're doing is okay. They are being selfish and manipulative and need to look in the mirror and examine their immature and abhorrent behavior instead of insulting and putting blame on you. If you don't mind me asking, where do you live? I'm shocked that this is even happening. You should get both families and your brothers to read this. They should be ashamed of themselves and embarrassed for acting like emotionally immature teenagers. I'm gonna go a long shot and say Australia, because missus, but who knows? Could be America. Calling their own sister a stripper for Jake's pleasure is beyond gross. Agreed. The brothers' actions during the bachelor party were the most outrageous behavior in the whole story. It's bad enough that the parents have gotten OP's brothers in on their delusional fantasy, but what her brothers did is just beyond all sense of decency. I bet you that their behavior is not that different outside the bachelor party. This poor girl has just gotten used to their bullying. Not the asshole. I grew up in a similar situation with a close friend of mine. It didn't really stop until she came out a couple of years back, but her mother still refers to me as her son and talks about what could have been, even though I'm engaged and her daughter is, again, gay. It drives me crazy that parents try to force shit like this on their kids. OP asks, how did you deal with it? Did it get better? Did they ever tell you why they were so obsessed? It sounds like a fantasy the two families built up over your lifetime that just got stronger over the years. I think it's time for a timeout. I would write up an email or a letter or text and mass send it to your brothers, who are disgusting by the way for their behavior at the bachelor party, and parents. Don't bother with the other family, they aren't yours to deal with. Let them know in detail how they've hurt and upset you over this issue, and tell them that you're on a timeout from contact with any of them, that if they offer sincere apologies, you'll consider allowing them back in your life, but until that time, you're going to concentrate on building your life with your partner. Then block everyone. I think your mental health will improve immensely with that stress removed. I read somewhere about how to properly apologize using the 4 R's. People need to take responsibility, meaning they acknowledge what they've done, no excuses. They show true remorse. They must do their best to repair the damage they've caused. And they must commit to not repeating it. Without an apology this detailed, I would never let any of those wackos back into my life. What the actual hell is wrong with them? I'm so sorry this happened to you. Back to the question there, would you be the asshole for refusing to go to the wedding and telling your parents I'm going to cut them off? No. You've made it crystal clear to both people getting married here that you aren't going and why you aren't going. The only ones offended about that are your parents and family with their weird delusions. They have no right to be upset about you refusing to go to their wedding. This is something that they have knowingly caused. And telling your parents you're going to cut them off, again, cannot make you an asshole here, because if you've been abused and attacked like you have in here, I don't think telling them that you're going to cut them off is going to make you an asshole. I think this goes beyond the realm of assholery. I think they very much deserve no contact for a good long time until they learn the error of their ways. Though when you're a part of a hive mind like that, and you guys have all fed into your own delusions, I don't know if they're going to realize that they're in the wrong here. They could just rationalize it being like, oh, you know, she's just having a moment, she'll be back, she's overreacting, yada yada yada. I would hope that's not the case, but we have seen weirder. Not the asshole. And now, on to the updates. Update 1, Jake and Tracy broke up. 2, my fiancé was cheating with Tracy the whole time. 3, I think I might have feelings for Jake, but I can't let our families win. 4, I'm pregnant and it's Jake's. And if you guys believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. I'm kidding. I just thought this comment was particularly hilarious. First of all, thank you for all of your insights, especially those of you who reached out in the comments and privately with similar stories. I honestly thought my family was the only demented one, but apparently it's a trend. Also, a lot of German parents have done that. Now for the real updates. My fiancé and I spoke and concluded that cutting out my family for now would be the best option. I sent a message to my parents and brothers explaining my decision to distance myself for the time being. I emphasized that while I love them, I cannot continue to endure their pressure and manipulation. I told them their behavior has made me resent them and, to some extent, Jake. They ruined any friendly relationship that we could have had and made me feel gross and exploited. I told them that they were setting me up to be sexually assaulted if it had been anyone else but Jake. I also told them that their controlling behavior was the reason I never told them anything about my life. I told them that it hurts to be with them, and I'm in a bad mood for days after meeting them. I never look forward to holidays with them, and have caught myself wishing that I would get into an accident or get sick before the holidays to have an excuse not to go. They cut themselves out of my life, and they will not be there when I get married, have kids, or in any other life achievements. After sending the message, I left the group, blocked them all, and felt really light. I cried with my fiancé for hours, and I didn't really know if it was tears of sadness, relief, or happiness. I was so conflicted, I just kind of fell asleep. Jake has also cut his part of the family off. According to Tracy, he just went to their home, dumped a sack of their stuff on the table, told them to stay the hell away from him, and left. His mother tried reaching out to me, and my father tried reaching out to Jake. Our fiancés had been targeted by them too. My parents sent the police to my house, claiming my fiancé had me there against my will. We talked to the police. They couldn't do much, but assured me that they would leave a note in their database clarifying that I am not being abused. I also asked how to go about a no-contact order, and they pointed me to the resources. They also said they would tell my parents to leave me alone, and noted that should they make false reports, they would have to cover the cost of the drive out to me. As of Friday, we have different numbers. Tracy's coming over this afternoon, and I'm taking her to my nail salon, and afterwards, we're going to a game store because she really wants to play some escape games. Jake and I are still not close, and he's also not close to my fiancé. But he's happy that we've carved out a healthy space and that Tracy is so comfortable with me now in such a short span of time. They are reevaluating their wedding plans, but I won't disclose more here. Also, to the people that made fun of me for saying that I couldn't drive by anywhere without a car, I have a bike. Anyway, that was it. It was only a week, and I don't see this going much further. My parents are going to keep contacting me probably, but it's gonna be alright. We are all alright. In the comments, AbsoluteRec98 says, I love your sense of humor. Definitely got my laugh in from the first paragraph, lol. As for your families, good on you and Jake for cutting everyone off. I doubt that false report of you being abused is the end of it though. Please be safe, you were doing the right thing by seeking a no-contact order. Make sure that you have security at your wedding, and maybe suggest that Jake and Tracy do the same. Update 5, Tracy and I are now engaged. Update 6, Tracy and I are both pregnant with triplets. Twins are so last year. I'm glad Tracy came around and realized that it was the families doing this and not you and Jake. This is exactly what you need, and you'll be a lot happier for it, especially in the long run. You're taking care of you and your chosen family, and that's all you need to do. Enjoy your freedom. If the four of you keep a united front against your families and make sure boundaries will be respected if you let them back in your life, hopefully this is over. But it'll take time for them to understand their twisted dream of marrying two of their children to become one happy family is not happening. What they didn't understand is they already had that, because family isn't always determined by blood or marriage. Friends can become extended family by choice. Wild that people were giving OP shit for not driving. As someone who doesn't drive, this doesn't surprise me at all. People seem to think not driving is a moral failing. I usually just tell people that I have a medical disorder, which is true, and even with that, people will try to figure out which disorder and try to tell me what I can do to fix it so I can drive. I don't drive, and the most I've had is a curious question as to if it's because I don't want to, or can't, or if I plan to do lessons at some point. I think it's seemingly just dependent on where you are and how car-centric things are. Do you wear wigs? Will you wear wigs? When will you wear wigs? Part of me also wonders if it's a Western European thing versus United States thing. I've also learned that many developed European countries have cities that are very interconnected, so it's not really such a heavy requirement to drive everywhere. On top of that, parking space and the ability to afford very limited, whereas even in cities in the United States, you do need a car. New York is really a very much unique thing among cities in the US. There's no way you're getting around Los Angeles or Miami easily without a car, to be honest with you. And you just have to pay hundreds of dollars to park your car, where in Europe, you can get away with owning a bike at most. I think that's something that's mentioned quite a bit on here when we talk about Reddit and the intermingling of people from different countries. I saw my stepmom's Reddit account and found out that she hates me and my siblings. I'm really pissed off and want to vent. I even cried reading the things she said, and I don't know what to do. I don't need any advice, I just want to vent. My father has been married to my stepmother for 5 years. He has been divorced from my mother since my younger brother was 2 years old. There is no beef between them, and they have great co-parenting. I have a 17-year-old sister, a 16-year-old brother, and I'm 25. Then my father has a 3-year-old son with my stepmother. I found her Reddit account in a pretty random way. Since I'm only home on the weekends, I let her use my computer. She forgot to close her email because I was able to come home during the week. She doesn't post too much, but she does comment way too much. I was honestly going to close the email, but it caught my attention that all the replies were from a step-parent subreddit, so curiosity won me over. I know, it's not a good thing to do, and curiosity did kill the cat. The first thing I saw was her last post in which she detailed things about my life in a random Reddit sub, criticizing my decisions and even lying to get people to support her. Lying on the internet? People are allowed to do that? She has posts on that site talking about how happy she feels when my siblings are not at home, my sister adores her, but she has comments talking about how she can't wait for them to turn 18 and leave the house because she just wants to share the house with her family, which are my father and her toddler. It seems that she doesn't see us as her family. She has a lot of comments answering other people that it's totally okay to not love your stepchildren because they are not family, and it's okay not to consider them one. She has comments talking about how much it bothers her when my dad and brother have sleepovers. They just watch a series in the playroom and then go to sleep, as she's tired of hearing the laughter of a teenager and can't wait until we all leave the house so my father can be with his real family. But what she hates the most is having to learn sign language for my little sister. It had always seemed strange to me that stepmother still struggles with sign language, but now I know that she never really put in the effort to learn. My sister always said that for many people, sign language is very difficult, so I never said anything. But now I know that she always found it stupid to learn how to communicate with my sister when my sister always tried to help her. I was too surprised by the hatred she has when my father spends time with me and my sister. Her jealousy towards us is so obvious that it disgusts me that there were so many people who told her how they feel the same way about their stepdaughters, to the point of sexualizing things and saying too much disgusting things that I don't even want to say here. My siblings are not problem children. They even love her very much, and what fills me with anger the most is that she is so false in front of us. Do you know the number of times I offered to babysit my half-brother so that she and my dad can go on a date? All those times she refused to let me take care of him, but now I've seen comments that she left about how I'm living at my father's house and I don't help at all, only for other people to respond saying that she should give my father an ultimatum to make me leave because I'm too old to live with him and he has a new family. I cook my food, do my laundry, help my father pay the bills, while she doesn't, and normally only come home on the weekends because I'm doing a police academy almost full week. I don't even care if I'm making it too obvious who I am. It was my father who told me to move back in with him so that when I come back from the academy on Friday nights, it would be a shorter trip. She sexualizes my interactions with my father, saying that it's not normal for me to sleep and nap, hugging him, and that I should know my place. He's my father. What the hell is wrong with her? I'm so disgusted I have the comments, I have the post. I even have comments from years ago, and I will use them. I don't care. In the comments, Irascible says, "Show Dad her posts." Show your father what she really thinks of you all, because once you're all eventually out and she gets her wish, she's gonna work double time to keep it that way and isolate him. You won't get any inheritance. She will make sure of it. Tell your father. She already hates you, so go ahead and give her a real reason to. I understand that sometimes people just don't get along, but that's really terrible and selfish behavior on her end. If she's considering giving your dad an ultimatum, beat her to the punch before she can come up with some sob story or cover-up. To complain about learning sign language, the sound of your brother's laugh, and sexualizing your relationship with your father? Shame on her. Your father deserves to know who he's married to. Yeah, I agree that you should tell him everything that's happened here, give him all of the history that you can find, and let him make a decision as to where he goes from here, because an ultimatum is crazy talk. Oh yeah, I hate your daughter, and I know it was your idea to move her into the house and to look after her, but I'm gonna break up with you if you don't get rid of her. Why? Because I said so. I would hope that any rational person that hears that puts their children first and goes, "You're not making any sense. Who the hell am I married to?" But I don't even think that's going to happen because I want OP here to beat her to the punch and expose just how much of a shit person she is and how much hate her heart is filled with. I'm so sorry that you had to experience all of this vile bullshit on the timeline, OP, but I think ultimately this is for the best so that you can get rid of this vile woman. And now, onto the update. I deleted the post. Hi. I decided to delete the post because for now, I can't tell anyone what happened because I'll basically be locked up in the academy until Friday morning. In fact, I shouldn't even be using my cell phone now. Someone with too much free time shared the situation in that sub of step-parents to warn my stepmother? I have screenshots of everything, including a video showing that it is her email and showing the comments. If she sees the post, what will she do? Delete the account? I already have proof. But I don't want my siblings to find out before I tell them, and I know that those types of posts usually end up in those TikToks that re-upload posts without permission, so I prefer to delete the post so that it doesn't stand out even more, although my siblings don't use Reddit or that kind of content. I'm going to post again in that sub when I talk about everything with my family, so I hope Redditors know how to keep the secret post for now. Being a stepmom is hard. Yes, one thing is feeling that you're having a hard time, and another totally different thing is making a post saying that you hate it when your stepdaughter is around her father because you think she's going to screw him. The hell? It's not the same to say being a step-parent is stressful than to say, honestly, learning sign language is unnecessary because when the girl turns 18, I won't see her again. It's a waste of time since she can read lips. Also, some people complained about me hugging my dad. I also take a nap hugging my mother or my siblings. I'm sorry for having a family that loves me and are not perverts who see a hug as something sexual. Probably next week I'll be able to give an update. The academy keeps me working almost all day. In the comments, Elegant Crab 7500 says, "Oh honey, my heart breaks for you. You do though sound very mature and responsible. I've helped my sister raise my niece who is now 23 and is totally alienated from her dad who left my sister for his now wife when my niece was only 10 months old, and stepfamily because her stepmom is much like yours, but has done far worse things, but then in a narcissistic way blamed it on my sister and I. My niece acts very tough and nonchalant about it, but a good few months ago, we were watching Hope Floats, and she just burst into tears sobbing, 'Why doesn't Dad love me? What did I do wrong?' There is no perfect outcome for this, sadly, but I do feel that she needs to know that you know, and so do your mum and siblings. If possible, do it in a calm, factual way that protects your integrity. From my experience, do not respond and/or mirror or act like her. Always maintain your dignity and equilibrium in spite of what people here might say. Always maintain the upper hand. My sister and I did not, and sadly reacted to a lot of what my niece's stepmom did with rage. She, as any good narcissist, would in turn use this against us. And now, onto the next update, titled, I talked with my siblings and my mum. Hi. For now, I'm going to post this little update here since I haven't spoken to my father yet, but I spoke with my siblings and my mum. I told my dad that I was staying at a friend's house when I left the academy, but I actually went to my mum's house and told her everything. She doesn't even know what Reddit is. That site isn't used too much here. But I translated the comments and posts for her. I showed her the videos, and my mum was furious. I explained to her that in the comments, BM, it's Madre Biologica. I was confused about it too the first time I heard that, also with SM. So my stepmom also made comments and posts complaining about my mother, being that they have always had a cordial treatment. But still, my stepmom was lying, saying that my mother was troublesome. No one in the comments said anything. Everyone supported her and they recommended that she should move far away with her legal family, far away from the problematic baby mum and kids, or biological mother and kids. First, we told my brother, who was also upset, and said that she was a fake, but that he had seen her ignore my sister and pretend that she doesn't see or hear her a lot of times. He explained that, like me, it also seemed strange to him that stepmom had not learned sign language. My siblings spent a lot of time at my father's house, and just like English or Spanish, sign language is much easier to learn if you live with someone who uses it every day. Therefore, it is strange that stepmother doesn't use it. He said that even my father is offered to pay for her classes, but she says that she doesn't have time. We asked him if he noticed any other behaviors of that kind, and he said that stepmom doesn't let him take care of our younger brother, which she also does with me, but curiously, she does let our sister take care of him, so I don't understand that. Other than that, she's never treated him badly or anything like that. At the time of telling my sister, she was the most hurt. She cried, especially because of stepmother's comments towards me, calling me a whore. It's kind of ironic how the comments towards her affected me, and the comments towards me affect her. Something that my sister noticed that I didn't is that almost all of stepmother's comments are criticizing me, my sister, and even my mother. But of my brother, she has only criticized sleepovers or when he comes back late from being with his friends. But she has criticized my sister's clothes, made up things about my life, confessed that she hates it when we hug our father, said that we are too clingy, she talked badly about my mother, etc. My sister said that it's sexist and maybe she's got some mental problem. A bit internalized misogyny, huh? My sister said she always believed stepmom didn't really hear her and she maybe wasn't speaking well and didn't understand her. I think that's the shittiest thing of all. My sister's greatest pride is being able to pronounce some words, no matter how short they are or if they sound like noise for some people. We understand her. But stepmom made her feel insecure every time she ignored her. I know that my sister always justified that by believing that it was her mistake and that stepmom made an effort to learn, but it was simply more difficult for her. But now we know that no, she was never interested in learning. I'm getting mad again as I write this. Sorry. My mother said that she was going to talk to the both of them, mainly because even though it's an anonymous site, stepmom's way of expressing herself is sick and she's not going to let my siblings be around someone like that. Oh, but she's venting. Being a stepmom is lonely. I received comments like that. It's not the same to say, I feel lonely and I feel stressed, than to say, my stepdaughter behaves like a slut. Just because me and my minor sister used a bikini for the pool. Her account is old. She's been leaving comments like that for years. With lies, with complaints that we have never heard before. It's just messed up. We arranged that we are going to tell our father all together and show him everything, so we're probably going to tell him tomorrow because I need to leave to the academy on Monday. My stepmom's account is not deleted. It's crazy how she makes things up to get approval from strangers. At this point, I don't even know if she's crazy or a mythomaniac. I would like to go back to her email since the password is saved, but I don't know if she'll receive a notification of that because this time I closed the account. And now, onto the final update. So we talked to my father over the weekend. For now, he is staying at my mother's house. It's a complicated situation since in the middle of everything is my half-sibling too. During the weekend, I went to my father's house, and the first thing I did was tell my stepmom separately that I've seen her Reddit account and I'm going to talk about it with my dad. She told me that I can't condemn her for something she uses as an intimate diary, but I told her that this is not a diary. It's a social network where she makes her problems and lies public. If someone other than me discovered her account, then what was going to happen? Were they going to believe all the things that she invented? If her identity was revealed in that account by someone else, I would have too many problems, and could even be kicked out of the academy. Again, there is a big difference between saying, I'm stressed, and my stepdaughters behave like sla-la-la-la-las around their father. I simply told her that my mother and sister also know it, and would come to talk about it too. She, for obvious reasons, just went to lock herself in her room, not wanting to talk with me. Once we talked to my father, I showed him most of the posts and comments. There were so many crazy comments that I would think it would take me too long to read them all because they were just too long. She's the kind of person who comments the bio of their lives in the posts of other people. My father got angry. My stepmother never expressed having a single problem with us like that. The situation would be different if we knew what she thought about us. My father went to look for my stepmother, who refused to talk about it and was mostly angry with me for violating her privacy. My father told her that she's insane for thinking that my sister and I sexually provoked him, that he can't believe the way she talks about my sister and the happiness she expresses every time my sister goes to the hospital and is not home, how she expresses to be counting the days until my siblings stop going to the house forever. My father told her that she knew that he is a father and that he would never leave us aside. She made her decision, and even so, instead of talking about her problems, she decided to create an account to play at being a victim. She said she needs a place to vent, but he told her that venting is not the same as telling lies. Venting is not the same as hating your stepdaughters and talking horrible things about them, and she could have spoken about it and not just lied. They argued a lot, but it didn't get anywhere because she kept defending herself, and my father only told her that it was over. My mother told my father that she's not going to let my sister and brother be around a woman who is clearly mentally unstable because no normal person thinks like that. After arguing too much, and even trying to make stepmother understand that what she did is wrong, she just justified herself all the time. My father went with us and told her that he is going to come back just to see my brother every day, but that he no longer trusts her and never saw that side of her. She lied for so many years. Nothing really went as I expected because I expected her to be more mature. I think I at least hoped that she could apologize, but I think she doesn't even think that what she did was wrong. In her mind, everything was totally justified because being a stepmother is difficult. But nothing justifies her being so cruel and so poisonous. But yeah, that's what happened. I think it's hurtful to know that someone can hide that much darkness inside them. I wasn't too close with her, but I liked her, to the point of sharing my clothes and things with her, so I also feel sad about it, mostly for my dad. In the comments, Don't Kill the Messenger 1 says, "Wow, just wow. You think you know someone, and then 1 second, bam! I'm so sorry that you and your family are dealing with this. The stepmother is off her rocker. Does she need constant attention and approval? She needs therapy, and most likely the whole family, because this is a traumatic event, and major trust issues are now forming. Stay well, stay strong, OP." I'm happy that your father stood up for you all. I got kicked out of the stepparent subreddits because it was clear that some stepparents were unhinged and hated their stepkids with a passion. OP says, Yeah, I even had to delete the first post because I was told that someone had made a post in that subreddit to alert my stepmother. It's insane what hateful stepparents would do. That woman's sick. The father should fight to get majority custody of their shared kid, if not full with supervised visitations, because who knows what she'll say or do to that baby. Anyone who thinks like that and justifies their behavior is capable of anything. I used to post regularly, back when it had quality moderation. Used to be folks who wanted to blame the kids got a swift kick in the pants and a reminder that they chose their situation. Stepkids had no say. I don't know what shifted, but the whole sub took a sharp turn off a cliff at some point. Did the stepmother really believe that a loving father like this won't have his kids at home after they became 18? Lol? There's a story of a father asking why his fiancée didn't want his daughter to be a part of their wedding, and it turned out that she thought that he would become just a child support dad and they would move away together and never see her again. That's terrible. Do people genuinely do that? That's sick in the head. I applaud you, OP, for stepping up for your father and for your entire family in this situation. She deserves to have a post history and all the vile shit she said exposed online. You deserve better than that, and your father definitely deserves to be away from that demon. I really don't have too much else to add then. That was a great update. Thank you for the story. I hope she leaves you guys alone in the future, because her expecting him to abandon his kids as soon as they turn 18, especially given how the world has changed and, kids will live at home until like their 30s, their mid-30s. That's just so cruel and gross to expect that he cuts you guys off then. She's delusional. Wishing you all the best for the future, OP. Our next post is by user Local Honeydew, titled, "Am I the asshole for insisting my friend's significant other pay their share for holiday accommodation? My friend, male 47, and I, female 43, booked to go to an island that we'd both been keen to go to. We booked a 2-bed cabin, and because of the popularity of the place, we had to book and pay 10 months in advance. We split the cost 50-50. 2 months before we're due to go, he meets someone and they commence dating. The holiday comes up and, understandably, she was a bit uncomfortable with him coming with me. I was given an ultimatum. Either she comes or the entire holiday is called off. I didn't say yes immediately because I needed to check with the accommodation, as the island has a limited number of guests allowed, and I need the okay from them first. My hesitation wasn't taken well. They thought I wasn't keen. I got back to them within 24 hours and said that I'd gotten the all clear for his girlfriend to also come, and she could book plane tickets for her. A week later, he informed me that she had the tickets, and I asked him if we could discuss rebalancing the accommodation costs now that there was the 3 of us coming, as it should now be a 3-way split. I was surprised that he responded with anger. As far as he was concerned, the accommodation was paid for, and it was wrong and greedy of me to expect money from his girlfriend. He told me that he was paying for the entire holiday for his girlfriend, so it was still going to be just him and me paying, so it was unfair of me not to pay for half. I told him that there's 3 adults, 3 people, 3-way splits. If he chose to pay for his girlfriend's third, then that was his choice and nothing to do with me. He told me his girlfriend was going to buy me a cocktail to say thank you for the accommodation, but if I was going to insist on a split, then I could forget it and buy my own damn cocktails, as he couldn't believe that I was being so selfish. The thing is, a cocktail is $15, and I was currently covering half her accommodation costs, $600. I don't think I was an asshole for asking her/them to cover her share of the accommodation. I hadn't even met her yet, but they thought that I should cover her costs because it was already paid for. Am I the asshole for insisting that she pay for her component of the cost? In the comments, Just Hanging Out 420 says, "Not the asshole. Pull out of the vacation if you can still get a full refund. This will not end up being fun for you." This OP. There is a very real chance this trip is going to be unpleasant for you, potentially even doing permanent damage to your friendship. You could also offer for the girlfriend to pay for your half, and then they both go instead of the 3 of you. Not the asshole. Make a deal with him. She pays for her share of the cabin, you buy your own drinks. Problem solved. Not the asshole, but he should buy you out of the holiday, and you can go somewhere on your own and not be the third wheel in the obsessive period of someone's new relationship. 'cause that's a lot of fun. Not. Or be expected to pay for half of your friend's new girlfriend's holiday. Agree on the not the asshole. It's not fair to go 50-50. I think a three-way split is fair. Yes, they are sharing a room, but you aren't paying for just where you sleep. There is the rest of the cabin common space and always being around this new person. I have to think a 2-bedroom island cabin is not that big. For sure, a drink is not the same as paying some of the cabin cost. Maybe not a third, but definitely something significant. If you would still go, 'cause I wouldn't. I agree too on trying to change this trip. There is no way you could go as originally planned, even if you wanted to, because of new girlfriend. 50-50 is not fair, and even if you change your mind and compromised about this, you'd be the third wheel with a brand new relationship. And even if they now agree to a fairer split, is that worth the possible stress and tension if they're passive-aggressive about it? Can you buy your, maybe soon-to-be ex, friend out, and either go on your own or with another friend? Worst case scenario, can you cancel and get some or all of your money back? Is it too late to get a refund on anything? I wouldn't want to spend a single second with them considering they're treating you like trash for asking for a simple contribution on a trip that the new girlfriend has weaseled her way into. I would bet my bottom dollar that she either can't afford and is insecure, or that she's just that entitled. If he's paying her whole trip, then he needs to cough up more for the stay. Bad friend. OP replies, I'm super tempted to throw it all in. Demands have started about removing myself from the cabin to give them privacy and cancelling pre-booked plans because she doesn't want to do them. Yeah, if they're gonna start making those demands and trying to get you to cancel pre-booked plans, OP, I'd be out of there yesterday. If you do actually want to go on the trip still, which I doubt given that comment, I'd still keep doing what you're doing with the 1/3 share. Because I think that capitulating to them won't be a good time because then they'll expect you to capitulate in other areas. They get to have their holiday while you're just an observer that's kind of bankrolling her in a way. Aw, thanks for buying me a cocktail. It's too bad that I couldn't join you guys on the snorkeling or the, romantic trip around the island because my presence isn't wanted. I just think that there's more potential for bad news than good news here, and you should absolutely look out for yourself in this instance, not the asshole. And now, onto the updates. Thank you, everyone. Interesting to see various lines of thought. It seems there's a split between people that think that everyone pays equally no matter what, those that think a couple sharing a bedroom are treated as one person cost-wise, and those that think the costs should be split taking into account the shared areas. 1/3 per bedroom, 1/3 per shared spaces. With this in mind, and everything else going on, I called the accommodation and discussed options, then called my friend. I explained to him that we'd made the arrangement to split everything equally when there was only the two of us going, but I no longer felt that the agreement was fair. I suggested the third option, splitting the cost of the communal areas 3 ways, but set cost per bedroom, and also stated that any food, activities, etc. wouldn't be split anymore. We would each be responsible for our own, and they could decide as a couple how they were paying for themselves. It didn't go down well at all. He didn't see why he should be out of pocket because I decided to go against our agreement that I'm paying 50% of everything. I stuck to it and said that I'd been willing to negotiate the accommodation costs, but there was no way that I was going to pay half for his girlfriend's activities or her dinners and drinks. And it was ridiculous for him to think that I should be paying half of his girlfriend's costs, especially since she's a complete stranger and he'd already asked me to change all of our previous plans to suit her. He called me a B-word, a witch, and told me that I was acting crazy. I stopped him and said that from that, I don't think this holiday is going to work, and I'd spoken to the accommodation, and I was going to cancel as of today. I told him if he still wanted to go, then the accommodation would hold open the booking for him for 72 hours, and if he confirmed it with them, I'd instructed them to hold on to $1,800 as what he'd contributed to the booking and refund me the rest, and his girlfriend and him would have to pay the hotel to finalize. If they didn't confirm, I would get the refund for the whole amount and then forward him his share. He then went quiet and told me that since I was changing the rules at the last minute, I should leave the entire accommodation payment because it wasn't his fault that I no longer wanted to go, leaving them in the lurch, and I would be ruining his holiday with his girlfriend. I told him that I was cancelling and I would definitely not be paying for any accommodation I wouldn't be using. I might have been a little petty when I told him that he'd still be paying for his girlfriend's costs. It'll just be a little bit more than he was expecting because I was no longer going to subsidize them. I cancelled my flights and the accommodation and emailed him all the details. In the comments, JulesMe10 says, "Wow, I'm so sorry. They both are immature. I bet you she's young. Offering a cocktail and then taking it back? She is young or broke or cheap. Not someone you want to go on a nice trip with. I would say, since there are so many requests by her, this has become a trip more about her, and therefore needs to be split 3 ways. How is it fair that she gets to kick me out of the cabin? Sadly, you may lose a friend over this. He's obviously siding with his 2-minute jealous girlfriend over a long-term friend." OP says, "She's 51, so the oldest. I don't know her at all. Never met her, so can't say whether she's cheap or broke. Who is this guy to you? How did you meet him? How long have you known him? I cannot fathom someone expecting this from someone else. It sounds like an oblivious, self-centered sibling taking advantage of a family bond type of entitlement. This can't have been the first time that he's done something this inconsiderate." OP says, "I'd known him for 5 years as a friend. Yes, I've had some issues with him for the lack of empathy regarding others and some general selfishness. He was a mid-40s guy that basically never had a long-term girlfriend. I just sort of went with the too used to doing his own thing to pay much attention to it. We've traveled together before and in larger groups. I have issues in the past with his lack of planning, leaving a lot up to me, but his entire personality seemed to change overnight when he started seeing this new girlfriend. Nothing was good enough. Before, he'd at least discuss things, talk options. This time was like hitting a brick wall. His way or no way. Decided this was what was going to happen without talking to me, and then got angry when I wanted to discuss it first." OP messaged an update and says, "I haven't kept in contact with them for obvious reasons, but through some mutual type of friends, I found out the following. They planned to go, but tried to find cheaper accommodation on the island, so let the hold expire without making any contact with the accommodation. From my understanding, everything was booked up completely that weekend and for the next 6 months. They lost the option to use the cabin, and someone else immediately booked it when it became free, as there's a wait list. I received back the full deposit and immediately transferred his portion to him as I stated I would. Never got an acknowledgement that he received it, but it was an account that I'd paid into previously, and my bank assured me that it was good. A mutual friend told me the ex-friend was pissed off, as, against my advice, he had bought non-refundable, non-transferable plane tickets and refused to buy travel insurance, so he's out the cost of those fares, about $3,200, and that because I pulled out, his holiday with his girlfriend was totally ruined, and I owed him an apology and the cost of the affairs. Not gonna happen. Myself, I booked a holiday back at the island where I'm in a single apartment by myself and plan to have an awesome time." In the comments, Humanity is a Cesspool says, "I love how the friend was the one to insist on bringing the girlfriend last minute, but OP was the one changing the rules. Like nobody, you changed the rules first by turning a 2-person trip into a couple's holiday with a third wheel. OP was just adjusting the rest to make things fair. It's not my fault that you no longer wanted to go. Well, it quite literally is. Dude was beyond transparent about how he was planning to take advantage of OP and treat her like a wallet, and OP gave him plenty of opportunities to back down gracefully. He single-handedly ruined the holiday with his greed. Refused to pay $300, so lost $3,200 and ruined a friendship. Insane. He's the one that threatened to pull out if the girlfriend couldn't come, so why is he acting like OP is the asshole for pulling out? $300 is just the accommodation. He expected OP to split the girlfriend's food and activities as well. Yes, this was the most mind-boggling part of the whole thing. Who the hell would expect her to pay for his girlfriend that she's never met? Insanity. All insanity, and good riddance to bad trash. I could understand, like the accommodation thing, as that was pre-made beforehand, but the fact that he got so enraged that they couldn't make new plans after the accommodation and dinners that OP would cover 50% of, but his 51-year-old girlfriend refused to pay for? He's so enraged that OP won't pay for someone else when things will become understandably more expensive with a third person. Like, why won't you pay for this stranger's costs for everything and also stay out of the cabin because I want to have sex with her? You can sit outside the cabin like a good little dog, okay? And pay for us. Don't forget to pay for us too. I don't even think it's the audacity at this point. The delusion is astounding. The absolute delusion of these two has amazed me, but the delusion of society never ceases to amaze me because it always finds new lows. Oh, whatever. I'm glad that OP looked after themselves. Buy travel insurance, guys. It's pretty good. Am I the asshole here for informing my parents that my best friend kicked me out of our apartment because his girlfriend asked him to? So I, 21 female, have been friends with Mike, 21 male, for 16 years. We became friends officially in kindergarten, but our parents were friends in college. I honestly can't even call him a best friend. He's like a sibling, and in a way we were raised as siblings. Group family holidays, sleepovers, family vacations on both sides. At one point, we even all lived together for a year. I'm saying this because I know some people will ask. No, there's been no crushes or feelings on either side at all. We haven't kissed, confessed feelings, or had crushes. It's been strictly sibling-like, and I'm saying that now because of what Mike's girlfriend has been saying. Mike and I share an apartment together near campus as we both attend college together. Around 7 months ago, Mike met his girlfriend, April, 21 female. Now, I thought we would get along okay. I've only met her a couple of times because she has anxiety, but I had no problem at all with her until recently, besides some minor things. Sometimes she would interject when Mike would call me his sister. It wasn't always, but normally like, well, technically you aren't siblings, which is 100% true, but it's how we viewed each other since we were kids. So almost a month ago, my class got cancelled, so I came home early. I walk in, and right on the couch is Mike and April having sex. No! Take off my uniform, April! I'm kidding. I'm having flashbacks. I scream, run to my room, and frantically yell at Mike via text. He apologized, and he thought that I would be gone longer. I made him clean the couch, and, all good, right? Nothing's good, OP. You triggered a trauma response in me. No. April, for some reason, got upset and felt that, in her words, I did that on purpose, despite it never happening before, and that it was inappropriate of me to walk in on them. Again, this was in the living room. Absolutely disgusting in my opinion, but I moved on, because it's not a big deal. Embarrassing, but nothing crazy. Anyway, Mike had been stressed recently because April's been asking him to distance from me. I thought she was just embarrassed, which I'd understand, so I tried being friendly and apologized. Well, last weekend, Mike sat me down and basically said that I had to move out because his girlfriend was upset with me living with him. I was floored. I got so upset, I don't think I've yelled and cried that much in my life. The basics is that he doesn't want me to, but he's pressured from his girlfriend and he really loves her, so he wants to make her happy. He thinks that this shouldn't change our friendship and that he's just putting some distance between us. See, if he had asked me to move out, I'd understand. Okay, yeah, maybe you want to take your relationship to the next level, okay, but it was a demand. And not only that, he wanted to put space between our friendship. It was so effing hurtful. I've known him for 16 years and that's it? I'm gone for someone he's known for 7 months? I said he was choosing a short relationship over his sister, and that I don't want him to contact me if he's going to be like that. He said I was overreacting, but I called my parents and got them to pick me up. Literally, thank God they don't live far away, but what if they did? What did he expect me to effing do, just like sleep outside or something? Anyway, I obviously had to tell my parents what was going on, given that they had to pick me up and I was an emotional mess. I told them everything, which caused a bit of an argument when they went to pick up some of my things the next day. They called Mike's parents and kinda chewed them out a bit, and from my understanding, they called Mike and did the same. Mike messaged me to say that he was upset that I couldn't be civil and that he feels like I'm throwing away a friendship. I blocked him shortly after. Mike, you're the one having sex on a couch. Let me remind you about civility here, buddy. Man who has not tasted grapes says sour. I've taken some time off classes, but I'm so effing hurt and upset. It hurts that he could just throw me away so easily. I don't think that I did anything wrong telling my parents, but I think it may have crossed a line when they phoned Mike's parents. Like I said previously, our parents are really close, and it's kind of messed with their friendship now. His parents have been really kind and apologetic, even though it's not their fault, and a part of me feels like I made this into a bigger mess. Also, I know I didn't have to leave. Me and Mike both pay an equal amount of rent for the apartment, but I didn't want to stay in a place that I wasn't wanted. I would have just made it difficult, and a worst case scenario, he would leave, which would have put a financial strain on me. In the comments, Not Shocked Fruit Weird says, "Not the asshole. Are you also on the lease? If so, contact the landlord to see if you can get off the lease and have the friend be solely responsible for rent." OP says, "Thank you. My parents said the same thing, I just haven't had the energy. I paid my last one this month, and from my understanding, he wants April to move in, so I think it'll be switching, although I haven't done it before, so I'm not sure. You need to call yourself and figure it out. Typically, landlords don't just allow people to switch out. Also, if you're smart, you won't allow her to live there while your name is on the lease. If anything happens at the apartment, you're on the hook, not her. Honestly, at this point, you need to be a witch to protect yourself. You need to have the landlord check the apartment and get your portion of the security deposit back. Then April needs to add her name and pay her portion. That way, if anything is damaged, you aren't on the hook. As long as your name is on the lease, you are liable, so if she goes crazy and trashes the place, instead of it affecting her, it affects you." OP says, "Shit, damn, okay. Yeah, thank you, I really needed to hear that. I'm calling today, then bloody waiting." Carbon Soul says, "Then he can pay you out of your part of the deposit, or he can eat the cost of moving out himself. You don't have to move. You legally have a right to be there, and this is just his problem. Tell him that." OP replies, "No, I totally get that. I know that I had no legal obligation to leave, and I had every right to stay. It was more so me being stubborn and not wanting to. At that point, I had my friend telling me that I had to leave and choosing someone else. I really didn't want to stay there. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but from my understanding, April is moving in soon, so I'll contact the landlord to let them know and to take my name off." Question: if Mike wanted to go to Pound Town with April, why didn't he do it in her living room rather than yours? OP says, "We have an apartment off campus while she lives in a dorm, so we have a lot more space and privacy. I know they get it on sometimes, but it's so effing gross to do it in the living room. I paid for the couch there too." I'm just gonna say how fascinating it is that some of y'all are shitting all over the new girlfriend for asking Mike not to live with OP anymore. There's nothing in the OP that says she wanted to move in. That could all be on Mike. And secondly, if April wrote a thread here describing OP's relationship with Mike, y'all would be supporting her and asking him to make a choice and to respect April's boundaries. OP says, "I can only go off of what I know. I know April is at least uncomfortable with my friendship with Mike. If Mike had come to me with these concerns and told me straight up, asking for space, I would have at least been understanding. I was asked to leave with no warning/little time, and I was told that he was limiting our contact. No proper explanation or conversation. This is a 16-year friendship. My anger is mainly directed at him for how he is handling this. But I do admittedly have some issues with April too because of how she's been with our friendship. April is allowed to feel some type of way because of our friendship, and Mike is allowed to act on that. But I also feel like I have a right to be upset over something that I can't really control." Not the asshole. But I also have a few questions. Has she ever tried telling him to cut off any other female friends that you know of? If she's forcing him to tell you to move out, it sounds like she might be trying to isolate him from any other girl in his life, friend or not. Not saying that what he did was right, but 7 months is way too early for her to get so comfortable as to force him to tell his childhood best friend to move out of your shared apartment and move in herself. OP says, as far as I know, no. I think we have one other female friend, but she's dating a guy in the group, and April and her don't interact a lot. She's had a lot of issues with Mike's parents though, especially his mother, but I don't know the reason on either side for that. I haven't communicated with his mother for a bit, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll make a huge leap now. Info. Does his mum like you and hope that you would get together with your friends? Oh no, not like that story. Oh no, not like that one. Please, no. Is this a crossover episode of like 3 stories? OP says, definitely not. Or nothing that I know of anyway. I'm close with his family in the same way that he is with mine, but there's never been any vibe from either of our parents that they wanted us together. Besides, this isn't his first girlfriend, so it's not like his mum is like this with all of them. Back up to the post, there's an edit. I read you all loud and clear. Thank you for waking my ass up. I've talked to my landlord. She said that she was uncomfortable with April moving in because she doesn't know her. I understood, so I'm moving my ass back tomorrow. I unblocked Mike and informed him. I explained that until our landlord says otherwise, I'm staying. Either he can leave and get a new place and keep paying the rent, or we can end our agreement together, and if our landlord agrees, they can start one. He replied, okay, we can talk about it tomorrow. So, we'll see. Thank you all so much for getting me up and going. I really had no idea how serious this situation could be until you all let me know how stupid I was being. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. I'm not wasting my money. Good on ya, OP. Love to see the energy. But curse you for reminding me of the couch story. In the exact same vein, this is the exact same setup. 3 generations of children cursed for that. Your thoughts on this with April is allowed to feel some type of way because of our friendship, Mike is allowed to act on that, but you also have the right to be upset over something that you really can't control. I agree with all of that. You guys are all entitled to your emotions. All of your feelings are valid here. Age is definitely playing a role in this one. Thank God I'm not 21 again because I know that I'd be caught up in something like this. Hopefully I wouldn't be the one on the couch though, Jesus Christ. But I can definitely see this happening, and you guys are young. Mike is acting on stupid horny emotion. April is acting on defensive emotion. It's a whole shit show. It's all a mess. And I really don't blame your parents for lashing out like they have. I really do blame Mike, though, for so much of this. I don't think that Mike is taking a mature and level-headed approach to all of this. He's just like, oh shit, I messed up, but get out. You can get out of the apartment right now. I know that I caused this mess, but you should get out so that I can feel better. And how dare you tell your parents about this that then come yell at me for my immaturity? You're an asshole for doing that. I thought you'd keep this under wraps. It's interesting that Mike is learning how the real world works and how accountability works. Hopefully this update kicks his ass a bit and he matures as a result of it. So, on to the updates. I came back to the apartment yesterday morning. I let Mike know beforehand and asked if April would not be there so we could talk alone. Mike was quite emotional and apologetic, which surprised me a little. I found out a bit more information that makes a bit more sense now. Mike has been under a lot of pressure for a while now to drop me. He thought that me moving out and distancing himself would be enough to appease April while still keeping our friendship. Obviously, he didn't expect me to take it the way I did, although what other way would I take it? And he didn't expect me to leave that day. I mean, yeah, he didn't specifically say pack your shit and leave now, but saying you need to leave, and saying that he wanted distance over our 16-year relationship out of nowhere makes me feel like I couldn't have just gone to bed normally, you know? I've read everyone's comments so many times. I've drilled it into my head. So as much as it hurts, I'm keeping my distance from Mike at the moment. The fact that he never told me once about April wanting him not to talk to me, and he didn't even consider my circumstances before asking me to leave, like where else could I go, it's not a definite end to our friendship, but I'm not feeling pretty positive. Anyway, he apologized. He said that he missed me while I was gone, and that he knew that he effed up after he told me to leave, but that he just wanted to make April happy since he could see a future with her. April has lost her shit, to put it mildly, and she threw up a storm in the lobby of our apartment last night. Mike refused to let her in, which understandably made her lose her shit even more. Tons of colourful words thrown about on both ends. I'm a homewrecker, wah wah wah, a witch, which is laughable, and anyway, she's not allowed into our apartments now, period. At least until he decides on their relationship. Mike has been pretty upset today. He wants space from April because he said that he wants to end the relationship. Very surprising, but I'm cautiously optimistic since I'm not sure how willing he will be. We've had a bit of a heart-to-heart. Regardless of how upset and hurt I am, he is my brother. I'm trying to be a witch like I wanted to when I moved back in, but it's so hard when he's all mopey and sad. I told him that if he continues seeing her, I'm putting some distance between us respectfully to avoid this happening again. He said he doesn't want that. I talked with my landlord before moving back. She didn't want April moving in as she doesn't know her. She was a bit upset that this situation was happening as she didn't want drama, which I understand. I've moved back and I've discussed the lease with Mike. We renew in September, or that was the plan, so now we're deciding on how to go ahead. I feel like it'll be best for me to get my own place. Maybe this was long overdue, to be honest. Although Mike is saying that he wants us to continue being roommates next year, so we're discussing this at the moment. It's not really a super dramatic update, but at least the leasing issue has been solved. I'm not being kicked out or leaving until our lease is done. April isn't coming over for the foreseeable future. The only issue right now is my relationship with Mike. It's very awkward in the apartment. You can tell that something's changed. He's been trying to be friendly like we were before this, and he's apologized a lot, which I appreciate, but I'm finding it a bit difficult to move on and to go back to normal. I'm not being a witch or mean, I'm just being slightly distant. Anyway, that's the update. I really want to thank you all again for making me realize how serious this could be. I honestly had no idea that you couldn't just switch who was renting, which is so embarrassing. Also, to the one woman in my DMs and comments spamming messaging me, you're insane. I don't know who hurt you, but get a life, please. This isn't even that serious. In the comments, Roadkill for Snack says, did Mike break down and explain how he changed from seeing a future with her to wants to end the relationship? Understanding his reasoning process may help to rebuild trust and demonstrate maturing of Mike. Was it the tantrum, damage to the friendship, damage to the relationship with his parents and your parents? If he was older and wiser, I think the insecurity of April, the inability to communicate, negotiate, and resolve conflict would be relationship red flags. OP says, he said that it was the few days that I was gone and had him blocked, that it put into perspective how much he missed me, and that he imagined the next 30 years of his life like this. I'm not entirely sure. Even I was surprised by the switch up, because even I thought that there would be drama between us when I came back. I hope Mike also sees the way April treated him and understands that the demands she made were toxic, possessive, and abusive. This is not a type of person to have a relationship or to see a future with. Missing you and imagining a life where he couldn't be with his friends and family is only one symptom of a person like April. Mike needs to learn to drop anyone who tries to come between him and a healthy familial relationship. As a mum, I like you two being roommates because you're less likely to have trouble with aggressive men. I'm a girl mum and think of these things. And for Mike, it's a great way to judge if the woman he's dating is psycho. OP replies, honestly, that was one of the main reasons why we moved in together when we started college. Mike and my family were worried about me having a place to myself, and Mike's parents wanted me to keep an eye on him. He truly picked sticking his dick in crazy over his 16-year friendship and his parents' since college friendship, now realizing he truly messed up everything to everyone involved without ever thinking about all the consequences, especially since OP's own actions and reactions were normal to do since all 4 parents knew about the apartment arrangements. He's reaping what he sowed with telling OP to move out. Now he can't handle that that's exactly what OP is doing again when the lease is up, and rightfully so, to never deal with his romantic relationship F-ups ever again under the same living space. Yeah, look, maybe my reaction was a little bit dramatic there too, because I didn't take into account just how unhinged April was. I'll admit that. I went on a little bit of a man-hating train, but I still stand true to that. Don't choose sticking your dick in crazy over a 16-year friendship. It's not worth it. You're gonna get burnt. I really hope that he learns his lesson from this and that he grows up a bit more as a result of his mistakes. I really don't want him to repeat that in the future again, because OP, you deserve so much better than the treatment that you endured here. But at least this is also a lesson for you too, with who you share your living spaces with and who you can and cannot trust. Overall, thank you for the story. I really appreciated that. Our next post is by user Pisach Problems, titled, "My 25 male, girlfriend 23 female, has been weird since having a cedar at my parents'. So I've been dating my girlfriend Lily for a little over a year. It had been going great and we were getting very serious, even talking about moving in together. So my parents asked me to invite her over to their house for a Passover cedar last month. For those who don't know Passover, it's basically like a meal combined with a story to celebrate the story of Exodus, the Jews being freed from slavery in Egypt, Moses, etc. I've only had one other serious girlfriend when I was in college, and she was Jewish. Lily is not Jewish, but honestly, my parents don't care. They didn't really like my ex, and seemed to really like Lily. I grew up very secularly. All that being said, there's a lot of Jewish-specific things happening during a Passover Seder, so I think my parents, especially my dad, felt this need to maybe over-explain things to Lily, and it seemed to make her uncomfortable. I didn't say anything at the time, which I regret, because I did notice that she seemed off, like quieter than usual, but I also thought that she might just be a little quiet because she was meeting my parents, and that saying something might draw more attention to it, which she wouldn't want. That's not an excuse, it's just an explanation of my mindset at the time. Anyways, since then, and it's nearly been a month, Lily has been kinda distant. She usually spends most nights at my apartment, but has only been over a couple of times and hasn't wanted to have sex. I noticed this within a week and tried to talk to her about it. I apologized for my parents' behavior and emphasized that I love her and her not being Jewish doesn't matter to me. She just kinda blushed bright red and said it was fine, but it's obviously not fine and she doesn't want to talk about it. Does anyone have any advice on how to broach this again, or what to say or do? I'm really lost and I don't want to lose my relationship over this." In the comments, an outrageous cloud says, "If she won't talk to you about it, then there isn't much you can do. You might be completely wrong about why she's upset, but how would you know? She owes you a conversation. If she won't have a conversation about what she's feeling, your relationship isn't going to work." OP says, "Thanks, I definitely feel that. The thing is, communication had never been a problem for us before. Maybe you're right, and I'm making too many assumptions though. I could try just pointing out what I'm noticing to her and asking if something is wrong. I would definitely do that. Point out how she is pulled away and ask her what's wrong. Have you considered that you being Jewish does matter to her? And not in an anti-Semitic way, more so in the way of, oh wow, my boyfriend's culture is really different from mine, and I might want to be with someone long-term who shares my traditions. My parents are intermarried and I'm a rabbi. As I became more religious as a teen, I had a pretty frank conversation with my mom about what it was like to raise a Jewish kid. She loves me and is happy for me, but there's certain things from her growing up that I never did and never wanted to do, and that makes her sad. As I've gotten older, I've stopped doing most culturally Christian traditions. My kids aren't going to celebrate Christmas or Easter at home, and that might be hard for my mom. In addition, some people from my mum's past have said pretty vile things to her for marrying a Jew. Her sisters don't always get it, although my grandparents were always pretty damn supportive. Interfaith relationships have a certain cost. That doesn't mean don't do them. There can also be some pretty beautiful moments, but there's a reason why, after growing up how I did, I decided to only date Jewish people. I wanted to share this very important aspect of myself with my life partner. OP says, "No, I guess I hadn't considered that, because she knew that I was Jewish when we first met, and it had never been an issue. But maybe you're right, because this is the first Jewish ritual or holiday that she's ever participated in. As I said, I was raised very secularly, so it's just never come up. It would make me incredibly sad if that's what broke us up. I'm not planning to have any kids for at least a few years minimum, but I would be happy to raise them in multiple traditions when I do." There are so many things that could be going on in her head. Might not have anything to do with the over-explaining or the Judaism itself, although it also depends on what you mean by over-explaining. Are we talking about just explaining things like what the salt water represents? Or are we talking about stuff most Christians would also know, like who is Moses? It can feel insulting to have things you already know explained to you. It's going to take a conversation of her explaining what's on her mind. So maybe open with her seeming a bit distant or upset lately, then see what she says rather than assume that it was about the Seder. And if she still says it's fine and nothing's bothering her, you either believe her, or she's just bad at communication. OP replies, "The over-explaining was not things like who Moses was, but it was still kind of overbearing. It felt a bit like they were trying to introduce her to Judaism, which I thought was weird. And my dad was just like going on about why we use the Haggadah, etc., when I really just wanted them to get on with it. But everyone's right that it might not have anything to do with the Seder. I'm definitely making assumptions because the change in her behavior came right after the Seder. I'm gonna go talk to her in a more open-ended way and just try to be honest and give her space to be honest without judgment." And now, onto the updates. It's been a weird effing week, so I apologize if this isn't the most coherent update. After I posted, I really appreciated the advice, noting that I might be making some assumptions about what was upsetting my girlfriend Lily. So I asked her if we could talk and that I just wanted to be open with each other. She agreed to meet up on Friday after work, when we normally would anyway for a date. So I made a nice meal for her at my apartment. It was her favorite thing that I cook, this creamy, lemony pasta dish, and then afterwards I tried to just kind of have this open-ended conversation about what I noticed. For example, how she's been more distant, and was there something wrong? She was really hesitant, just looking kind of nervous, and then she just kind of blurted out that the Seder made her uncomfortable. Okay, so that's what I thought, right? So I figure, okay, let's talk this through. It turns out that while she knew that I was Jewish, she didn't think that I was so Jewy, until she came to the Seder. I cringed and told her that the word Jewy was inappropriate, and she did not like me saying that. Excuse me? There's a part of the Passover Seder where we say, "next year in Jerusalem," just like a kind of hopeful attitude in light of the Jewish diaspora, I think. Anyway, she said that she found that part really inappropriate given the current war in Gaza. I told her that those things were not connected. My family has no real connection to Israel, and the Seder is hundreds, maybe thousands of year-old tradition that long predates the modern state of Israel. She didn't seem to care about that. So I finally asked her if she had a problem being in a relationship with me given my Jewishness. She emphatically said that no, she loves me, but it was a shock and that she needs time. That really threw me though, and I asked her what she needs time for, but she didn't have a real answer. So I went to my parents for the weekend to just kind of get away, since I wasn't sure what this all meant. While I was gone, I get an alert on my phone that an AirTag was following me. I found it hidden in my car. I called Lily, and she denied that it was hers, but I was pretty sure she was lying since she's not a good liar. Finally, she admitted that she was trying to see where I was going and if it was to the temple. I honestly hadn't been inside a temple since my bar mitzvah almost 13 years ago. Anyway, it should go without saying that I ended it. I blocked her on everything, I destroyed her AirTag too. No clue what the hell is wrong with her, but it feels anti-Semitic, I guess. I wish I had a happier update. I thought she was the one, but F me, I guess. Edit, due to popular demand, this is the recipe. It's on cooking.newyorktimes/recipes/1589 linguine with lemon sauce. I double the recipe and use more cheese and lemon zest than it calls for, but not exact amounts. Just kinda go with the flow on adding more. You all made me laugh with your desire for this recipe during a time where I'm feeling really effing low, so thank you. Edit 2, I guess the post got locked? I was mostly okay with the discussion I saw, but maybe that's because the mods took care of some bad shit before I saw it. If that's the case, then thank you, mods. I finally read through I think all, of the comments. To those that made me laugh, I sincerely thank you. I'm very stoned right now eating sour gummies and laugh crying at stupid movies. That is my coping mechanism, and I recognize that it's not healthy, especially with my Ashkenazi gastrointestinal issues. Anyway, to those that think that this was an issue that she had with me being religious, I don't think you understand what Judaism and Jewishness is. I'm not religious, I'm actually an atheist. Her issue was with my cultural background. She didn't see my culture because I guess it's not on display all the time. I mean, I think I have a pretty stereotypically Jewish sense of humor, but maybe she didn't put that together. Anyway, the more I think about it, the more I realize what other people said here is true. She wanted me to be generically white, and when she realized I was more ethnic than that, she had an issue with it. That is anti-Semitism, full stop. I did end up telling some mutual friends the full story, and one of them told me they actually suspected she might have some conspiracy theories rattling around in her head, which, if true, is like, I don't even know. He thinks she was attempting to track me because of some protocols of the Elders of Zion crap that she might believe, like she was hoping that I would lead her to the secret meeting. I honestly hope that that's not true, and I take it with a massive grain of salt. To those who think that this was a made-up post, I effing wish. I honestly feel like maybe this is a weird dream that I'm gonna wake up from, and my perfect, beautiful girlfriend will still be there. But she's not who I thought she was. It is all too real. I'm not gonna wade into the political quagmire, except to say that my ex-girlfriend's issues with me was about way more than a war thousands of miles away. I don't actually think that she and I probably disagree all that much on how we feel about that war. If you can't separate those things and see the anti-Semitism behind her actions and attitudes and language, then you are a part of the problem. Hope you all enjoy the lemon pasta. Am I the asshole for ignoring my husband and visiting my son on the 4th of July? I, 40 female, have been married to my now husband Joe for 15 years. I have a son, Matt, 22, from my previous relationship with Jake. Right after I graduated high school, I moved into Jake's house. He passed away 3 years later from cancer. 2 years after that, I met Joe, and we got married a year later. Joe moved into my house, which was owned by my deceased husband. When my son turned 18, Joe apparently told Matt that he had to pay $500 a month for rent and utilities. Matt told him that we actually owned the house that we live in, and because he wanted to be vindictive, said Joe could pay $1,000 a month to him or get out. My husband didn't believe him, but I confirmed that this was Matt's house and we couldn't force him to do anything. Rent didn't matter to Matt because his dad left him a fortune to cover expenses for the rest of his life. I really wish that Joe had talked to me about this before saying anything because we have 3 other sons. I'm a middle school teacher, and my husband works in a factory, so our combined income is only $75,000. Here, everyone has their own room with a huge backyard and pool. We could never afford to own or rent a place like this otherwise. My husband was shocked and tried to apologize, but my son didn't accept it and insisted he had to pay or leave. The most we could afford was a 2-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood. I told Joe that uprooting our kids from a good school district and their friends because of his mistake wasn't an option. A month passed, and my husband hadn't paid his rent. When my son asked for it, my husband laughed and said that he wasn't paying. so my son gave him an eviction notice. My husband suggested that we go to his parents' house, but I refused and said either he pays or he goes by himself. He paid and has continued to pay since then. However, my husband refuses to talk to Matt. Other than that, everything in the house is perfect. My ex also left my son a lake house in Florida. My son graduated college and wanted to take all of us on vacation to celebrate before he starts law school. My husband was excited, but my son quoted him $800. He explained that a grown man shouldn't be taking a handout. Joe stormed off. This morning, the 5 of us plus Matt's girlfriend were headed out the door. Joe yelled at me that he couldn't believe I was going. I told him I'm not going to let me and the kids suffer for a mistake that he made trying to be macho. I left, and my husband sent me a text message saying he was disappointed in me for siding with my son instead of him, and for turning the kids against him. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Extended Spike Protein says, "Wow, your now husband told his stepson to pay rent for a house he doesn't own without consulting you first? I'll be honest and say your husband sounds like a douchebag asshole. He should have immediately apologized. Talk to your son, ask whether you can stay there if you divorce him. Jesus Christ, not the asshole." Yeah, I have a feeling that Joe was trying to basically steal $500 a month in fun money for himself. What a greedy, stupid effing idiot. You can do a lot better than this loser. The fact he didn't tell her means that there was no way he's been using that for bills or anything. He would probably be counting on his stepson knowing that this was a man thing and not saying anything to his mom. I think he was counting on the kid that was not his moving out rather than pay rent. Why would you stay with someone who tried to extort money from your teenage son without discussing it with you? He might not have realized the house was in Matt's name, but he knew damn well that it wasn't in his. This is so much the right response. Don't lose sleep or miss out on opportunities presented that you could not otherwise afford your family because your husband is a toolbag who effed around and found out. And don't let the toolbag take you down the rabbit hole with him. Not the asshole. Your husband didn't make a mistake. He's a greedy asshole who tried to take money from your son for rent of a property that he did not own. Even if Matt didn't own the property and you did, it still would not have been his call. It would be 100% your call. Your son's a hero. Your asshole, freeloading husband is now living the find out stage. He could have happily continued to freeload if he wasn't such a shady bastard. Tell your son that he is significantly undercharging your husband on rent. Back up to the post, we have an edit. I did leave a few things out after reading the replies, so I thought to add some things. I technically never married my ex. He was 50 when we had our son, so he had a really good job and a few properties. I never told Joe that I didn't own the house because he would have never agreed to staying in the house that my ex owned. So I handled all finances. Joe would just pay me his portion of utilities and bills. A lot of you guys are saying that I didn't handle the situation, but I believe that I handled it to the best of my ability. When the situation first happened, I told Joe that I really love him and would love to remain a family with a decent quality of life, but if he couldn't remain in this household, I would agree to divorce him. He begged me to not divorce and said that he'll just pay my son the money. I thought that was the best way to handle the situation. Also, our finances are separate, so it's not taking away from me or the kids. But Joe doesn't really have money for his hobbies and interests, which was a problem for a while until he learned to just get over it. Update. So I took your advice to try to solve this situation. I asked Matt why Joe paying rent is necessary. Matt told me that it isn't, and that he hasn't touched the money that Joe gave him. It's in a bank account. I asked him why he's doing this then, and Matt told me that Joe has never apologized for demanding rent money to begin with. I was confused and said Joe told me that he apologized. Matt explained that he never got an apology, and when he does, Joe can stop paying rent and get the money back. I called Joe and asked why he's never apologized to Matt, and he was honest with his answer and said because Matt disrespected him in his house, and he should be the man of the house and have authority, but was embarrassed when he found out about the house because he realized that Matt was actually in control of him. I asked what his full intentions were when he asked Matt to pay rent. Joe said that it was to help lessen the bills. Joe only makes $2,500 a month, and $500 went to bills, another $500 went to the kids, and another $250 on groceries. He also helps his parents out. He had nothing at the end of the month for his personal expenses, and this $1,000 a month definitely did not help. He thought about apologizing, but he said his ego wouldn't let him. Joe said he loves Matt, but doesn't think that he could ever forgive him. I told him he started this mess, and honestly, if he thought that I owned the house, it wasn't his place to charge my son rent. He just hung up the phone, so that's where we stand. I don't know what to do now. Joe's been watching a bit too much alpha male TikTok, huh? I'm the man of the house. He can't control me. Yeah, I ain't apologizing to him. I didn't do anything wrong. Okay, Tater Tot. You didn't own the house, though, and you knew you didn't own the house. And if your wife did own the house, which you didn't ask, it still wouldn't have been okay to ask for rent, you dillbag. I didn't think it was possible for some people to be this smush-brained, but, I'm learning new things every day. Joe only has himself to blame for this one, and the fact that he can't even apologize like a man. It is a manly thing to apologize and admit faults. Then he's only going to continue sinking himself deeper into this hole. $1,000 is a lot to take out of a $2,500 a month paycheck. Joe is intentionally screwing his kids and himself over for his own pride. Dickhead, not the arsehole OP. And now, onto the updates. When we got home, Joe's parents were there. Me, Matt, Joe, and his parents had a talk. They asked me how I can let Matt treat him this way, and that a wife should back her husband up. I see where he gets the attitude from. Before I could talk, Matt said, and a man who marries a mother should treat her kids like his own. But he hasn't been doing that for the past 15 years. I asked Matt what he's talking about. He said that every time I went to one of my teachers' conferences or went on vacation, Joe would leave him at home by himself and take the other boys out to do something fun. He always disguised it as it was kid stuff and I wouldn't like it, but tell you that I didn't want to go. At 18, he actually planned on moving out, but then COVID happened, so he just decided to stay. I asked Joe if this was true, and he looked at me and said yeah, he shouldn't have to take care of someone else's kid. His parents looked disgusted, and his dad just went off on him and said he didn't raise him like this. I yelled at him and told him to get the hell out. He pleaded that he was sorry and that he realized that he was wrong with how he felt. His dad told him to leave, and when my husband tried to get in the car to go home with them, they said absolutely not and that he was on his own. He tried going to his brother's house, but when he heard the full story, he said no because he has kids and would be upset if their stepmom treated them that horribly. From what I heard, he's staying with a friend. I had divorce papers given to him at his job. He texted me and asked if we can meet. We met at a cafe, and he said that he was really sorry and has been for a long time. Then say that to Matt, dude. And that he never meant to hurt me or Matt, but that he said that it was hard to love another man's child. I just left. He's filed the papers, so I guess our divorce is about to start. I apologized to Matt for being a bad mum. He is fine, and our oldest son heard the conversation and doesn't want anything to do with his dad. The youngest two still spend time with him. In the comments, Megamose says, imagine alpha mailing yourself right out of a home and a marriage. What a stupid chuckle clock. What kind of mum finds out her husband demanded her son pay rent or get out and doesn't throw him to the curb? Or at least ask the son if things are okay before the rental demand? She totally missed her son being treated less than for 15 years? Yeah, 110%. Surprised Matt doesn't kick both Joe and Mummy out after the shit they both pulled and the fact that they're both mooching off of him. Big ick. I just can't get past the fact that she totally missed him being treated this way for 15 years. Then Stepmonster shows who he is, and she still doesn't say, hey, this seems really weird of a loving stepdad. Have things been okay with you two? It's actually easier than you think. I dealt with a lot of shit growing up, but kept it from my parents. Couldn't even tell you why I did, as my mum has always been a best friend to me and made it very obvious that I could trust her with anything. Some shit came out recently when I had a mental breakdown, and my poor parents' faces when they found out things that happened when I was a child was complete disbelief and heartbreak. Not the asshole. Your husband is a major asshole. He can't love another man's child or treat that child decently, although he has no problem being financially supported by another man's child. He is a complete and total loser. I think the best part of all of this is, if he'd been an actual man and a good and decent man, none of this would have happened. Instead, he chose to lie, cheat your son out of finances, and gaslight everyone until everything came out, all because he tried being a macho man from the 1950s like he thought he should be. Also, just to add, you raised one hell of a kid. He would have dropped everything for a simple apology, but he was teaching your husband a lesson in humility. A lesson your husband didn't seem to learn. It makes me sad to think about her son never telling her about what went on during those trips. He was presumably ages 7 to 18 during all that, just shoved that shitty treatment down and never told her. Yeah, pretty much, and he deserves everything that's happened to him here for his, decades-long torture of OP by the sounds of it. All because he can't give an apology. Though, it would be a bit more of a sorry for the rent thing. It'd be sorry for the last 11 years. And I don't think that he wants to do that. And you know what? Let him suffer the consequences of something that is so easy for so many. You are better off, and your mother is better off for this, OP. I'm not so sure about the stepkids, but I'm sure they will end up fine as well. I hope for the best for them. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Vanilla Sister, titled, "My 23 female, sister, 30 female, is upset that I babysit my friend's 23 male and 22 female baby over her nightmare kid. How can I get my family to understand that her kid is a nightmare? I'm a 23-year-old child-free woman. I don't know if this is needed for the story, and my sister is 30 with a 4-year-old son. She's a single mum, ex-husband is not in the picture, and has no contact with her or the kid. I'm gonna get straight to the point. The kid is a nightmare to be around. It's not his fault, it's my sister's fault. He very clearly has behavioral and mental health disorders, even at his young age. However, my sister was and is very ableist, and refuses to accept that her son has problems. The kid screams bloody murder whenever something doesn't slightly go his way, screams and cries when he's overwhelmed, has meltdowns to certain sounds and textures. Like I said, I don't blame the kid for these issues, but my sister is refusing to get him treatment or help, which makes the kid a nightmare to be around. So as a result, I don't babysit the kid when my sister asks, more like demands I do so. This causes a lot of fights between us and our family. I have a friend, 23 male, who is married to a wonderful lady, age 22, and they have a baby boy together who just turned 1. Yes, they got married and had him young, but it's not my place to judge them. This past weekend, they asked me to babysit for them, and I agreed for a few reasons. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and a general good kid, toddler, baby to be around. I love babysitting him. Also, they asked me nicely and understood that I might say no because I'm child-free. They were polite about their request. A thing about me is that if you ask me to do something politely, even if it's something that I wouldn't usually agree to, I'd probably do it because you were nice and polite. So for these reasons, I happily agreed to babysit the boy. My sister also asked me to babysit her son that day so she could have a day to herself, and I refused and told her that I was already babysitting for my friends. She was pissed to say the least. She said a few comments about how I was an asshole and not a good sister, but I thought she dropped it after that. This past weekend, while I was watching the baby, my sister started banging on my door. I looked through the window and saw that she had her kid in a care bag with her, and I knew that she was trying to drop him off and make me babysit. She was banging on the door, yelling at me and calling me heartless and a baby hater, while I was holding a baby, ironic, and that I better open up and do my sisterly duties. I put the baby in a different room to keep him from getting scared by the noise, and told my sister through the window to leave or that I would call the cops. She started cursing for a solid 5 minutes before she finally left. I had the whole thing on my doorbell camera and sent it to the family group chat. Surprisingly, my whole family is on my sister's side. She keeps arguing with me about how I'd rather babysit a kid not even related to me over my nephew. I reminded her that her kid's a nightmare to be around, but she keeps saying that for family, you help out. My sister has been cold since and keeps sending me text messages to provoke me into arguing with her more. She's also started saying some pretty ableist and nasty things towards my friend's wife. My friend's wife is on the spectrum and has BPD, and my sister keeps saying that she should have been sterilized and never should have passed her issues to her kid. By the way, her kid has shown none of the signs that autistic infants usually show, so I don't know what my sister is on. I will admit that I do feel a bit guilty because I never considered babysitting my nephew, but I jumped at the opportunity to babysit my friend's kid. My sister, dad, mum, and brother are all calling me an asshole and say that I'm using the child-free label to avoid family responsibility. I need advice on how to get my family to see my perspective on this. How can I explain to them that the issue isn't the idea of babysitting, but it's the behavior of the kid? In the comments, Drawn Otterick says, just ignore your sister, maybe even block her. She is not entitled to you as a babysitter. As for your family, black kettle them. So when are you babysitting sister's kiddo, since family should care for family, right? OP says, my brother, 33 which I should have mentioned, has a wife and kids, so he can't babysit. And my parents are in their early mid-60s, also probably should have mentioned, and claim to be too old to do so. I'm the youngest and was a whoops baby that my parents had in their 40s by chance. Because of my young age, and the fact that I'm not married and don't have kids, they keep saying that I'm the perfect person to babysit because I have nothing to do. Not even taking into consideration that I have a job and friends of my own. Having a family isn't an excuse to not babysit. In fact, it's easier to babysit a kid when they have other kids to play with. At that point, you're just a referee, not the entertainment. I do sympathize with your parents, but again, it's wrong of them to not be willing to babysit while being mad that you don't want to babysit. They are all hypocritical black kettles. So let them be upset, shrug your shoulders, and if need be, tell them, all of you are fully capable of babysitting too. You just don't want to. And we don't need to continue this conversation just because you think your excuse is better than my reason for not babysitting my nephew who needs professional help. So when you can stop calling the kettle black, we can continue this discussion. Talk to you later. And just leave the conversation. Mute them, block them for a week, whatever. I was gonna say the same thing. If your brother has kids, he likely has a bunch of toys and a house set up for kids. Adding one more kid in really doesn't make a big difference in terms of parenting. Right? That is a hilarious excuse, especially when it's your kid's cousin in question. My cousins and I were often passed from one set of parents to another as a package. Stop justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining your no. Do not give excuses like, I'm already babysitting another child. Nobody is owed your time or labor. Simply say, no, I can't do that. And if they won't accept it, hang up on them. Your sister's neglect of her child's needs is shameful. One day, she will have much, much bigger problems than not being able to find a sitter for him. If she plans to send her child to public school, her neglect will become extremely obvious when he's unable to manage himself, and she tells mandated reporters that she refuses to get him the help that he needs. OP replies, this issue has already come up. He's close to turning 5, and last school year he was supposed to be in preschool. He was enrolled, and of course the workers and teachers noticed his issues right away and tried to convince my sister to sign him up for the SPED program in the preschool and for behavioral therapy. She outright refused, went off on them, and pulled her kid from the program. He's going to start kindergarten in the fall, and my sister said that if they insult her son, she'll pull him out and homeschool him. I feel bad for my nephew because it's not his fault that he was born with these issues that cause him to act out when he gets overwhelmed. I sincerely hope that my sister wakes up and gets him help, or that once he grows up, he'll get help himself. Knox Wild replies to that, he needs help now. Your sister is sticking her head in the sand. Her boy's gonna grow taller, heavier, stronger, and probably more frustrated and angry and isolated. His acting out will become more likely to cause serious problems for himself, for her, and for anyone else in his vicinity. Maybe when he's too much for everyone else in your family and she really has no help at all, she'll take steps to get her son the guidance he needs. OP says, "My parents used to try and tell her when he was a smaller toddler and showing these behaviors. They were more tame and have escalated as he got older. She blew up, said that if they kept insulting her kid, she wouldn't let them see him again. Obviously, I can't imagine the position that put my parents in. They love their children and grandchildren, so I can imagine a threat like that would make them cave. If she threatens to not let family see her child when they criticize her choices, then that sounds like a great plan for you. Start loudly and frequently criticizing her choices to not get therapy for her child." Yeah, if you don't want to cut yourself off from everyone here, OP, you can just go on the offensive and make the abuse of this child as loud and as obnoxious as possible so that the rest of the family finally turns on her and is like, hell no, no babysitting is happening and we're shunning you into getting this child help. That's something that would make sense to me that would work, and I hope does work if you ever do that, and if other people have done it before, but I'd love to know if it hasn't and what happened when that backfired. My only other thought process was ring up CPS and be like, there's some major neglect going on here. Can you guys do anything about it? And if not, what can I do about it so this kid stops getting neglected? You can wash your hands of it if you want to, but I feel like this kid deserves a fair shot at life that his mum is not giving him. So with that said, this becomes quite a moral issue, really, and I hope that you do the right thing. And now, on to the update. So, shit has hit the fan. My original post was about 3 days ago, and ever since that post, my sister's behavior has escalated. I tried to talk to her about getting help for my nephew, and she kept screaming at me every time I brought it up. She said a lot of derogatory terms towards people with mental illnesses and mental disabilities, terms that I will not repeat here. That was not the only escalation. She was at my door several times a day, starting 2 days ago, the day after I made the original post, banging on my door, screaming, crying, cursing, the works. She brought my nephew each time, and he always looked so confused and defeated. He was too tired to react or melt down like he normally does around loud noises, and it broke my heart to see that on my doorbell camera. I wasn't at my house. I was crashing with my friend and his wife. I took the advice of a commenter who said to put some physical distance between me and my sister. They said that I was free to stay as long as I wanted, as long as I helped out with some house chores and childcare while I stayed, which I thought was more than fair. So I'm staying in their guest room currently. I'm still with them, even though my sister isn't much of a problem. Many will be glad to know that my sister won't have parental rights of my nephew soon. She dropped him off at a safe haven site in the middle of the night. Totally a fun phone call to wake up to at 2 in the morning. Ugh. And my nephew is currently with my parents. Social services placed him with my parents, and he's set to have mandatory therapy. In my state, I don't know if it's different in others, if a child is abandoned in any way, safe haven or not, a physical and mental health exam is done. Other than being a little bit underweight, my nephew was physically healthy. He wasn't being physically abused like a few people were worried, but it was obvious he needed mental help, so he'll be starting therapy sessions soon, as mandated by a caseworker. We are not looking for my sister. After she dropped her son off, she left. She had quit her job a few weeks back, sold her car, and even her house a few weeks ago, and had been renting a place. So this was planned. In my personal opinion, she planned to abandon her son the day that I was babysitting my friend's baby, which is why she had such a nuclear reaction. She did leave a note saying that she can't do it anymore, that she met someone, and she doesn't want to be a mum to my nephew anymore. In her note, she said she deserves a normal kid and not a burden like my nephew. I seriously hope that my sister doesn't have any more kids with this mystery person that she's referencing, but it seems like she's running off to start a new life and family. She still has 30 days to reclaim rights over my nephew, but it doesn't look like she'll do that, but time will tell. Like I said, I'm still with my friends because I was worried that my sister would do something. My parents and brother have also been blowing up my phone and coming to my house, switching between apologies and blaming me for this. They think that maybe if I babysat that day, she wouldn't have done this, but I think she wanted me to babysit so that she could do this. I'm not mad at them for blaming me. I understand that my sister is still their family and they are rightfully in shock and want someone to blame. They are human, and I know humans can be cruel sometimes while going through shock and grief. So yeah, that's life right now. I'm currently sitting on the couch with my friend's baby while my friend is at work and his wife does a quick grocery run. She was going to take the baby, but I insisted on watching him so that she doesn't have to hassle with the car seat in the very stormy weather that we have in our area right now. This update is just all over the place. I feel like I'm rambling. There is still a lot of unknown stuff regarding my sister and nephew, but for now, this is the update. I don't know if I'll post more regarding this situation. My friend's wife is still telling me that I should relax and just not think about anything relating to this until I'm more level-headed, but I don't think that's possible. In the comments, Rick Russell TX says, "Understand exactly why your brother and parents tried to shame you into babysitting. As long as you manage your sister and help her with her kid, she's out of their hair. You're the human shield, OP. Families go to great lengths not to deal with the giant squid in the kitchen. OP, be aware the next problem is coming. Your parents and brother will attempt to pressure you into accepting custody of your nephew. Be prepared." That's why they're mad at OP for not agreeing to babysit that day. The child would have already been at OP's home when the sister abandoned him. That is exactly what I was thinking. She wanted to drop the child at her sister's instead of her parents' house, figuring her parents would pressure her to just keep him for now, and for now would turn into forever. She already had plans, and her sister ruined them, for making her more mad and resentful. And I also thought that they may have had an inkling or even might have covertly pushed that idea to the sister. And I wouldn't doubt for 1 second that they will try and give that child to OP or convince her to keep him until sister comes back. They'll apply all sorts of, "but he's family," to try and guilt her to do this. That is exactly what's going to happen. All signs point to the parents not at all wanting to do this. And honestly, I don't entirely fault them for that. They are 60 plus and have done their time raising kids. But pushing the responsibility onto OP is unacceptable. If you aren't going to step up, it's beyond hypocritical to shame someone else for the same thing. I worked in foster care, and unfortunately this happens all the time. When a parent fails and a kid needs a home, the whole family points fingers elsewhere to avoid the responsibility. It's very sad to witness. Your sister clearly has her own severe mental health issues that she's refusing to acknowledge. As messed up as it might have been, this is for the best for your nephew. Also, I didn't know that you could just drop off a child of any age at a place like that. I thought any child over 2 couldn't be released like that. OP says, "I don't know my state laws, so I don't know, because I'm not directly involved in the case, I'm not getting updates. When I say we are not looking for her, I mean me and my family. Police could be looking for her, but I'm out of the loop on this whole case. Your sister is a total piece of shit, and frankly, so is everybody in that family other than OP and the kid." I couldn't agree more. It may sound harsh, but sister should have had an abortion instead of bringing a child into the world that she wasn't absolutely delighted, excited, and committed to be having. She has torpedoed her own life and her son's. No, it isn't harsh. She's a lazy, uncaring, ableist parent, a shitty entitled sister, a verbally abusive, tantrum-throwing 5-year-old pretending that she is an adult. And to top it all off, this all happened because she's an effing cheater, too. She slept around so much, they don't even know who the kid's father could be. And those other dipshits had the gall to shit on OP for any of this? With the added context as to why they wanted OP to do it so bad, OP was definitely at least scapegoat adjacent, and I hope that by the time we get an update, if we do get one, OP has laid into them viciously. Both for their parts in this whole mess, as well as how utterly asinine it is to think that OP is at fault for anything, as well as their own utter dogshit parenting in this as well. I doubt that it will happen, but hopefully with enough commenters pointing out their bullshit to OP, she might finally call them all out. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my wife over my daughter's school picture? I, 60 male, have been married to my wife, 51 female, for around 15 years. We also have a beautiful daughter named Ha Young, 17 female, who is in her junior year of high school. Yesterday, after school, Ha Young came up to me and my wife and showed me her school pictures, both her individual photo and her group and grade photo. They were taken all the way back in February, but they had just arrived today. I complimented Ha Young and told her how beautiful she looked in the photos before telling her how proud I was to see her grow up throughout the ages, before showing my wife the pictures of our daughter. It didn't go the way that I thought and hoped it would. Instead of looking at it for a bit before saying something, my wife immediately pointed out to Ha Young that she was looking too downward at the camera and that her eyes looked strained and forced. I was a bit taken aback at first, but I decided to just keep listening. My wife then said to my daughter that she would have to have rehearsals for school pictures with her for next year, because in my wife's words, Ha Young still doesn't understand how to properly pose, smile, and look beautiful for a school picture. I was a bit irritated, but I let it slide. What set me off though was when my wife said, Ha Young's picture is a fail. Honestly, Melissa looks like the prettiest out of everyone. Ha Young got quiet and said, I'm gonna be honest, my picture this year is really bad compared to sophomore year. I got mad that evening. We had a huge argument in the living room. I told my wife that she was being cruel to our daughter, and since school pictures were over, there was no point being so picky about it. My wife retaliated, saying that even Ha Young says that she doesn't like how she looks in her school picture. I was just being honest. I'm only trying to help her. She then went into her room and started crying, saying that I don't understand her. I will admit that I raised my voice while we were having that argument, and I'm seriously sitting here questioning myself about whether I was the asshole or not. After our arguments, I knocked on Ha Young's door and I could tell that her expression was that she had listened to every piece of the argument. I feel bad because I may have overreacted to something as simple as school pictures. Plus, I ruined my daughter's evening and my wife's too, and I also made my wife cry. So Reddit, am I the asshole? In the comments, Nimi says, I'm guessing based on the fake name that your wife is Korean. I know beauty standards there are super high, and she could be projecting her own insecurities, and maybe even comments that she got when she was young. Of course, this is not okay, but it could be worth sitting down with her and having a talk. Being 17 is tough as it is, and having your own parents festering insecurity will damage her even further. OP says, you're right on that. Me and my wife are both Korean. I know the beauty standards there are super tough, so I'm probably going to talk to my wife privately to understand why she said that and check up on Ha Young a bit before talking with my wife. I know that she's super shaken up, so the best I can do is be the best father that I can. She will always be my Hanyul and Bada. My Korean mum and her gaggle of church friends did some serious damage to my self-esteem at her age. Please continue to protect your daughter. It may be acceptable in Korea to tear someone apart that you love, but it isn't here. So she needs to stop yesterday. Dude, this. My dad was a Korean Presbyterian minister before he retired. My mum has always been pretty chill, but he still cuts me down, and I'm in my mid-30s. He recently started doing it to my 2-year-old, and I 100% shut it down instantly and aggressively. OP, keep protecting your daughter, and possibly even talk to your child about the cultural factors at play here. Not the asshole. Gross. Not that it isn't gross at any age, but what do you even say about a 2-year-old? They're babies. Honestly, I would have cut the mum some slack if it wasn't for this line. Honestly, Melissa looked like the prettiest out of everyone. What kind of mum tells her daughter that her friends look prettier than her? If she had simply said that her daughter didn't look her best and had to work on her posing, I would let it go. But saying her daughter's friend looks prettier? Those are the words of a mother who is practiced and comfortable at cutting her daughter down. Not the asshole OP. I realize everything comes back to therapy on here, but you really should consider signing your wife and daughter up for a few sessions, or do it as a family so the wife doesn't get defensive. Tears don't make a person right. Your wife is a cruel woman and not a good mother, based on what you've shared here today. I suspect your daughter will have a distant relationship with her mother in her adult years, which is 100% your wife's fault. I bet she counts the days until she can be away from a person like her. That woman is doing harm to your daughter's self-esteem. You did right by protecting your daughter. It's terrible when her own mother is her biggest bully. Does your wife complain about the way her own mother treats her? Is her mother very critical? Not the asshole. Do Korean women tend to have very high beauty and maintenance standards? And no, you're not in the wrong. Teenage girls are already extremely sensitive about their looks, so your compliment was kind and nurturing. OP says, I cannot speak on behalf of everyone. I know that the beauty standards are extremely tough there. I've heard people commenting about the fatness and skinniness of people's bodies. I've sometimes heard conversations about K-pop idols' bodies and faces, makeup, surgery, etc. Edit. This is not the first time my wife has said something like this. This is why I feel even more terrible because I let my daughter suffer like this. I did give my wife a word or two, but I always told Ha Young that this was just the way that she spoke and that she really did love her. I really want to cry right now, especially overhearing Ha Young crying herself to sleep yesterday night. She's always kept on a brave face around me and my wife, but it just breaks me even more now knowing that she feels like she can't talk to me either. I've failed her. Ha Young always asks me every morning if she looked beautiful. She would always ask me at mealtimes if she was eating too much. I'm so afraid of the damage that we both put her through for so long. I'm so scared that she's going to develop an eating disorder, and I'm going to make sure to set things straight with my wife and take care of my daughter better. She is always my first priority. Edit 2. I was taken off guard even though my wife has made responses like this in the past, because though it's not the first time, I had a little bit of hope left that she wouldn't point out Ha Young's appearance that outright in her school photo. Later that night in the comments, OP says, Hello everyone. Tonight, since my wife was working a night shift today, I decided that I'm going to be staying together with Ha Young for a daddy-daughter date. I know it doesn't matter whether we go out or not, all that matters is that I'm with her. I'm planning on making her some of her favorite foods and spending quality time as an apology for not being there when I should have been. She loves japchae, galbi, and cream bungyobang. I asked Ha Young beforehand whether she wanted to stay at home or to go out, and she wanted to stay home, and she chose to go with the first option. I'll let you know how it goes. Yeah, not the asshole here for blowing up at your wife over your daughter's school picture. I don't know if those were crocodile tears to get you to let up on your wife, or that she genuinely was remorseful for it, but given the Korean culture and how we know that people act in Korea as a whole, given, the surgery that people do, I'm gonna say that it was more so crocodile tears, and this is an ingrained cultural thing. Unlearning those toxic cultural things that are ingrained in you from a child is very difficult, and a lot of people take on those things of like, well, I had it hard, so you have to have it hard too. That makes it right. That means that I didn't suffer for nothing. I'm gonna guess that's what the wife is going through here, and that's just continuing cultural trauma. And you know how your parents made you feel when you did that. Is it right for you to continue to put your own kids through that? I'm saying absolutely not. That's how I'm going about this one. And wife needs to have a good hard look at herself in the mirror and ask if it's worth alienating yourself from your daughter for bullying her like that. You can actively choose to not be an absolute piece of shit to your own daughter and bully her for having school photos. These school photos do not matter. There is nothing consequential about them, and yet you're just taking jabs at her. She's just a bully. Just a big bully. I don't blame you for blowing up at your wife over this one, OP. I would continue to stamp out this behavior until it's gone for good and she knows not to harass her own daughter like that anymore. And that may well end in divorce if she doesn't want to change. But I would say divorce is better than subjecting your child to bullying from their own parent who's supposed to love them. And now, onto the updates. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their generous comments and advice. As promised, here is the update. After my wife left for work, I decided to check up on my daughter. She was in her room doing homework, and I could tell by the forced expression that she was not okay. As she talked, everything began to make sense. My daughter overheard her mother shaming her in front of the other church mums. She heard them boasting about their kids, and her mother would use condescending modesty. For example, she's gained weight and she doesn't even study hard. She was tired of trying to surpass my wife's expectations. She couldn't stand it when my wife was in the house. She asked me, why am I her diamond? She cuts me to make me shine. How much more of this should I take? I prepared her all the foods that I promised to make, and she was hesitant but ate a lot more when my wife was around. She wanted to further talk with me. I then asked if she wanted me to tell my wife how she felt. Ha Young said it was the only way to get her to listen, before telling me that she wants me to get a divorce. I asked her if she was absolutely sure, as it was something very serious. She said that she was fine with it. I'm just devastated that it's reached this point. When Ha Young was at school, I had a conversation with my wife. I brought up Ha Young's concerns along with mine. I asked my wife what made her put down my daughter on the day of the school picture incident, and she made excuses such as having bad days, hence she would accidentally release her anger and other emotions by yelling, the silent treatment, etc. I questioned further if there was anything in the past that was bothering her, which she replied snarkily, "Nothing is bothering me. I raised her into a better person. If you have problems with how I'm raising her, she's all yours. I don't want to argue anymore, especially with a sensitive, lazy person like you." We had a lot of arguments in the past on raising Ha Young. This phrase was used in all of our arguments to shut me up. As Ha Young was consistently used as an emotional punching bag and a trophy for my wife, this was the last straw. I told my wife that we were done, and then told her to pack up and leave. I thanked her for letting me realize my self-worth. After some time had passed, she had driven to her parents' house and was staying there for a bit. When Ha Young came back, she noticed her mum's room was a lot barer than it was before and knew what had happened. I hugged Ha Young and told her that I was sorry for the mess that I'd caused before reassuring her that nothing was her fault. I told her my ex-wife would come back a few more times to collect the rest of her stuff, but our relationship was over. This event shook me up a lot, but I know things will get better. I'm trying to make Ha Young always feel loved. Ha Young, you are my universe, and that will never change. In the comments, Danu Horus says, East Asia has crazy beauty standards, and I'm saying this as a Chinese woman, but rehearsals for effing school pictures is absolutely unhinged by their standards. Look down too much, eyes are too strained. That's stuff you would levy at a professional model, not a teenager. Mum has some very deep-seated self-hatred that she's projecting onto her daughter. This is the country where plastic surgery gifts are somewhat normalized. Korea has some messed up standards. Although, I have to say, Korean skincare products are top-notch. I always feel bad for the kids of parents who migrated here but kept the same cultural standards as back home. I remember reading somewhere that the culture in the home country continues to change and evolve, but the splinters, those who left, somehow remain strict and timeless. I was lucky that my parents are so easy and maybe gave me a little bit too much freedom that I never had to test it. My aunt was a nightmare. One of her daughters left for the other side of the globe, straight-A student, but nothing was good enough. Like, her daughter has a PhD, but got divorced and then had a kid out of wedlock after because she didn't want to marry her partner, though they already lived together. So my auntie never mentions her, even though she would come back to visit with her kid. As per my mum, she's glad that she didn't grow up in today's Korea. I think for Korea, it's the other way around. Koreans who migrated have less strict standards than the ones living in Korea. She told us that their school days include cram school and homework ended around 8 p.m., not 12 p.m. like for some kids nowadays. Plastic surgery was not expected or readily available in the 70s and 80s, and beauty standards weren't that nuts. And even if you didn't end up at one of the top 4 universities, you could make a comfortable living working at smaller companies. Chaebols really did the Korean society dirty. I don't really have too much to add to that one. I genuinely didn't predict the divorce. I didn't read ahead for this story, so take that as it is. I still stand by my words that divorce is the best outcome here now. Ha Young was the one who asked her dad to get divorced, so really, You could go and fix the relationship with therapy if you wanted to, but given how the mum reacted to the request for divorce, doesn't seem like she wanted to fight for that relationship or for her own child's. And you know what? Better to just let her cut ties and live her own life. As long as she's not doing more damage to Ha Young, absolute best case scenario. Given the circumstances, of course, there are better scenarios that could have existed, but given the circumstances, I like this one. Hopefully Ha Young heals and OP finds someone that is better than the ex-wife. I'm just going to put it like that. Someone that's better. He deserves better. Ha Young deserves better. Thank you for sharing the story with us, OP. Our next post is by user CompleteLoquat6405, titled, My 32 female, wife, 31 female, wants to become a full-time housewife after years of studying to become a doctor, but I'm totally against it. Hello. I've been with my wife since our second year of high school. From what I remember, she's always wanted to become a doctor, a pediatric doctor to be exact. While I kept changing my mind and was constantly unsure about what I wanted, my wife was extremely dedicated on wanting to become a pediatric doctor. I've seen her study her butt off in college and cry from frustration as she studied. Seeing her work so hard gave me the motivation to finish school and to become a lawyer. We've been each other's biggest supporters throughout this journey. From working odd jobs to support ourselves, having cheap dates at the park, and crying from stress and frustration, it was like finally seeing the end of the tunnel with my partner next to me the entire time. We got married right after I graduated from law school and started living in a bigger place with the money that we had saved together. She finished her internship this year and is about to legally become a licensed doctor. However, her happy tune about becoming a doctor suddenly changed. I'm not really sure when her obsession with becoming a housewife started, but seeing her go from being a career-oriented woman with hopes and dreams to wanting to become a housewife gave me severe whiplash. I just couldn't understand what could make her change her mind so suddenly. I tried asking her about it, and she said something along the lines of, I just want to cook and clean for you. Live a simple life. I assumed that maybe she was feeling lonely since I'd been working a lot, so I told her that we'd go on more dates and spend more time together, but again, she insisted that she wanted to be a housewife. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a housewife, but to give up your long years of studying and hard work to stay home and cook is absurd. We're already splitting the chores at home, and we've just been on very equal footing since forever. I just can't seem to read her. Maybe being a doctor just isn't for her, or perhaps she got bored. I just don't get it. I want her to do what makes her happy because I truly love her, and she's my entire world. But is stopping everything and throwing away the chance of having one of the most respectable jobs on earth just to stay home and do chores really worth it? Maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. Maybe she's trying to tell me something and I'm being dense. I wish I could read her mind, because I just don't get it. At the end of the day, I just want to know why, and maybe convince her otherwise. As much as I think that's a bad idea, it's still her life. But I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself if I let her throw her career away. In the comments, Toaster Child says, I worry about the lack of communication between you two. She's expressing a desire, but not saying why. You want to guess the reason, but don't want to ask her for some reason. You also want to talk her out of it without even knowing her reasoning. Are you totally against it no matter what, or just totally against it because you're making huge assumptions about why? OP replies, Hello. I must admit that my initial reaction wasn't great. I had given her all the reasons as to why it's not a good idea to throw away her hard work and assumed the possible reasonings all on my own. Thank you for pointing that out to me, as I haven't even noticed this myself. In the moment, I only thought about what I personally thought would be good for my wife, rather than what she thinks is good for her. Again, I thank you for your honesty. As others have commented, it's very possible that she's burnt out, but it also sounds to me like she might be panicking. She's on the verge of finally getting her license, which means that she'll no longer have the safety net of working under supervised licenses. She won't have folks, or at least as many folks, checking over her shoulder to make sure she's made the right call. Every decision she makes is on her from this point forward. That's a lot of pressure for any licensed professional, and she may be freaking out about it. It's normal for people to regress in some ways when they're coming up to a major milestone because they don't feel ready for the next phase of their lives. If this is anxiety or burnout, she may benefit from speaking to a therapist. OP replies, "Hello. Thank you for your response. This is something that hasn't even crossed my mind. The stress of proceeding all on her own and having the life or the future of a child in her hands must have caused her some great stress. Thank you for mentioning this. I'll keep this in mind when I have time to have a conversation about this with no disruption." It's possible that she may just be burnt out. Becoming a doctor is just so many years of work and stress, as you've seen. When was the last time that you two went on a holiday? Can you afford to go away for a short break? OP replies, "Hello. Yes. As of right now, I can totally afford it. However, we've been drowning in work, so whenever we do have some time for ourselves, we end up spending it at home. I believe that some time away would do her good. Thank you for suggesting this." Yeah, unless you can get her side of the story here and understand where she's coming from and why she's feeling this way, I don't think that you really can do much in this situation, OP. If it's a case of she just wants a few years break and then get back into pediatrics, that's completely fine. I think she's entitled to her own proclivities. Let 1,000 blossoms bloom. I hope you guys can fix this one together. And now, on to the update. Hello everyone. I realize that it's been quite some time since I made this post, and I apologize for updating you all so late. If I'm being honest, this post slipped my mind completely. My wife and I were going through our own healing journey, and I simply wanted to focus on her. However, things are much better now, and both my wife and I are content with our lives. Here's a proper and pretty lengthy update for the ones who are curious about how my wife and I were holding up now. For one, she's working to finish her residency, and I'm so incredibly proud of her for pushing through, even with all of the odds against her. She's incredibly hardworking, and I'll always be there for her. Through the past few months, I had to revisit a lot of areas within our relationship. For one, the status of our relationship was worse than I imagined. There were major life events in her life that I would have never known about if I hadn't broken the growing wall between us. My wife has always been a hard worker, and because simple encouragement always seemed to be enough to boost her morale, I assumed that this was still the case, though I was terribly wrong. My wife needed a friend, a shoulder to lean on, a confidant, and a lover. But during her very difficult year, I was none of those things. As her wife, I failed to give her the proper love and support that she desperately needed and deserved. Not only was she burnt out, but because I unintentionally put work before her, I wounded her deeply. Our intimacy was practically non-existent, our conversations never went beyond surface-level subjects, and sometimes, the only time that we'd see one another was when one of us was already long asleep. Whenever I would ask her if she was okay, she always told me that she was fine, which I doubted, but since I didn't want to push her, I stopped asking. That is where I made my mistake. Asking wasn't enough. I was foolish. We barely saw each other, did anything together, shared words of endearment, or basked in each other's presence. Intimacy just seemed so foreign between us. Like a fool, I thought, hey, I asked if she's okay and she said she's fine. My job is done here. I never once tried to give her the reassurance that I was someone she could depend on, that I was ready to sit and listen, that she could complain to me about the same thing over and over again, and that I'd still listen with just as much attention. During a time of great stress, I was everything but helpful. The distance between us was growing pretty rapidly, and it's only after her insistence on becoming a housewife that this veil was lifted. Thanks to my initial post, I received a lot of helpful criticism both online and in real life. It took a lot of personal reflection. Initially, I thought applying what I was told would be a piece of cake, but seeing myself struggle to approach her made me realize how much we had truly grown apart. Little things like her hair, the bags under her eyes, or even her choices of clothes all changed. My wife has always been someone who enjoyed dressing up. Pastel colors are her favorite, weird earrings she finds from God knows where, shoes, makeup, sweets, those things. Little things that made her, suddenly stopped appearing. Again, I tried to argue that because she works in a hospital, her style of choice was most likely limited, but even when she was home, it was different. Guilt was eating me alive. My hands would tingle in pain just thinking about the burden that she must be carrying all on her own. I decided to stop acting oblivious. Even if I had to do something deemed as awkward or unnatural, I was going to push through because she deserves better. I began to initiate simple intimacy. If it meant simple hand-holding or working in the same room as her, I did it. I no longer asked if she was okay, but instead let her know that I would always be there for her whenever she needed me. She is my priority. Although it took some time, I was able to coax her into confiding in me again. We did revisit the housewife thing after a few months. She admitted that this feeling came from a deep sense of loneliness, stress, feeling burnt out, and the witness of a child's death. It was her first time witnessing a gradual, inevitable death, and had grown quite attached to both the child and the mother who happened to be our age. This made the entire tragedy even more painful. However, my wife is still a doctor and things move quickly. She tried forgetting about it and moving on, but the realization of the weight she carries as a health professional kind of became burdening. She began questioning her years of study, her skill, her abilities. Things that she took great pride in turned into insecurities. Eventually, she came across some aesthetically pleasing life as a housewife content on YouTube. The idea of never having to go through such stress and heartbreak seemed so freeing to her. No longer having to see children in poor conditions, focusing on herself, her home, her own personal life, and our relationship. To be completely honest, I didn't know how to comfort her. For one, I'm not a health professional. Whenever I curiously looked at her notes, my head would start spinning, seeing words that seemed so foreign. Our careers differ so much from one another that I didn't know what would be appropriate to say. What can you possibly say to someone going through this type of heartbreak? With my limited knowledge, I told her that she shouldn't carry that burden and blame herself. People are quick to run to doctors whenever they get the slightest symptoms because they know that a doctor knows best. You naturally bring comfort, a sense of relief and safety. To me, she is no different than a superhero. The joy she brought to that child stuck with her right until her final moments, and that's something that she should be proud of. The child was able to live a little longer and experience so much joy because of her kindness and expertise. We revisited the conversation a lot, and every time I listened. Eventually, she gained a lot more confidence. She relied on her supervisor as well, who has been in the field way before either of us were born. Seeing her get better day by day made me so incredibly happy. We're at such a great place in our relationship right now. I love hearing her voice, seeing her, being near her, and being there for her. I missed her so much. I don't know how we went so long without speaking properly. She's my best friend, my family. I want to say that I wish I had known what to do sooner, but this entire incident was necessary. I believe it is. It brought us so much closer. We are family, and speaking about heavy subjects shouldn't be odd between us. I learned a lot about my wife, myself, and our relationship. I'm very happy with how things are going. Although we're still busy, we always find some time for ourselves. We also recently adopted 2 cats. I know a lot of people suggested that perhaps my wife was getting baby fever, but I assure you, our kittens definitely taught us that kids probably aren't meant for us. Not anytime soon, anyway. Thank you again for being so kind and honest with me. I'm excited to learn more and deepen our emotional connection, and I can only see a brighter future ahead. In the comments, Sorry Lil Sis says, it's great if things are better now, but one note, your wife needs to see a mental health professional on the regular for the rest of her career. Ideally, one that has experience dealing with other medical practitioners. I have more than a few health professionals in my family and friends, and so many of them need to see a psychologist and just skimp on it or just auto-medicate. It's great that you're here to support her, but frankly, you are not equipped to do that long-term. It's a job that needs someone specialized on it. Otherwise, her job is going to spill on your relationship again and again. OP replies, thank you. I also agree that seeing a mental health professional would be helpful to her. She's never been to therapy or anything like that, so it would definitely be something new for her. Cat Chris says, honestly, this is very refreshing. I agree with the other posters that your wife does need to set up someone or something to be her support system, like a counselor. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that her work offers these things. It's maintenance like trimming grass or toenails, and should not be viewed as something shameful at all. OP says, "Thank you. I absolutely agree. My wife grew up in an environment where mental health is viewed as something that eventually passes like a common cold, so seeking mental health support has never been a thought. However, it is something that we most definitely want to look into now that we've distanced ourselves from said environment." Quotes, "Eventually she came across some aesthetically pleasing life as a housewife content on YouTube. Pro tip out there for everyone. Effectively all of this content is lying to you. It's fundamentally a contradiction because by creating the content, they are working. They aren't housewives, they are actor content creators. They're also rich enough to pay people to do the real housework while they make videos of making cereal from scratch or making frickin' paper and crayons from scratch." Being in the medical field is absolutely terrifying. Yes, and internship year is when most doctors come to that realization, during the busiest and most stressful year of their careers. Interns are regularly sleep-deprived because of their insane schedules, and their attendings often offer very little in the way of support or guidance. That was my very first thought. As soon as OP said pediatrics, my husband's career has been spent in the ER of a regular hospital. When time is of the essence, ambulances will bring kids to his ER because they can summon a helicopter to take them to the nearest children's hospital and try to stabilize them in the meantime, but sometimes it's just too late. He doesn't strictly deal with children, and I can always tell when he comes home in the morning if they've lost a child. At least his hospital system is very understanding. They always offer counseling and PTO to staff who've had to deal with something particularly traumatizing, and there've been a few of those. I can't even imagine treating sick children exclusively. For me, the successes would never make up for the losses. Am I the asshole for telling my father to get over the vase that my son broke? When I was a teenager, my father bought a large glass vase, which he filled with wine corks. For years, it stayed on top of a small table in the living room. My family visits him monthly for lunch. Last October, my son was running around my father's living room and accidentally knocked the table over, which caused the vase to fall down and break. I immediately apologized and offered to buy a new vase. My husband and I also cleaned everything up. My father declined my offer to replace it. At the time, he said he understood that it was an accident and was just glad that my son hadn't gotten hurt. He was 2 years old at the time, and there was a lot of glass on the floor. During the next couple of months, I apologized and offered to pay for a new vase multiple times. My father continued, saying that it was fine. However, earlier this year, my father started talking about how much he loved the cork vase and how expensive it had been when he bought it. As the following months went by, his complaints began to escalate. He'd make comments about the fact that my son broke the vase almost every time we came over. Occasionally, he'd also joke that we should plan our visits with longer notice so that he could hide his valuables from my kid. Last week, he threw a party at his place, which we attended. A friend of his who hadn't visited in a while noticed that the vase was gone and had asked about it, to which my father replied that my little shit had broken it and I hadn't replaced it. Merry Christmas to you too, Dad. Oh my god, asshole. My husband was nearby and he heard it. After the party, I confronted my father and we fought. He said that he had the right to complain about the fact that my son had damaged his property. I told him that while he has the right to be upset, the fact that he declined my offer to buy him a new vase does not entitle him to complain about me not doing it. He can either retract his forgiveness and work something out with me, or get over the vase and stop blaming my toddler for the accident. I won't have him calling my son names over this. My father is still insisting that I'm in the wrong here. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Denizen K says, the solution would be to buy him a vase for Father's Day, his birthday, Christmas, every holiday. Buy him a vase in perpetuity. Make him so plentiful with vases that he never wishes to see a vase again. Problem solved, not the asshole. I love the way you think. Or, buy him an empty vase and bring a bottle of wine to drink to deal with your dad's crotchetiness. Deposit cork in vase. At the next party, point out how many times you had to drink to deal with his complaints. I was thinking to get a new vase and some champagne, and then pop the cork which hits the vase and smashes it again. Not the asshole. For Christ's sake, your son was a toddler doing toddler things. Your dad should have toddler-proofed the whole house. You offered to pay for a new vase, he declined, so he can shut the hell up about it. I always thought collecting and displaying wine corks was just bizarre. Hey, look at how much I drink, everyone! I mean, I think it depends on how you do it. My in-laws pop a bottle of champagne at momentous occasions. Big birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. They keep the cork and write the occasion on it. I think it's a nice way of seeing all of the causes for celebration that they've had over the years. Everyone sucks here. I wasn't allowed to run around in other homes. I blame the parents and your father for complaining. Also, why wouldn't you just buy a new vase anyways? My dog broke my dad's glass water bottle. It was a special bottle that cost him $100. He said don't worry about it, since he had it on the edge of the couch and all my pup did was walk by. I literally found this same bottle and shipped it to his home. He was super happy, although he said he didn't need another. When my friends come over, we go to a park so the kids can run. At my grandma's house, if the kids want to play, we sit on the porch. Children should learn boundaries of where to run and not to run. He's a toddler, so he should have had some toys or took him outside. I can't imagine allowing my child to run around my dad's house. He has a lot of glass. He's wrong for complaining, but you also should have just replaced it. Her kid broke it, so why would she not replace it? What's this bullshit about asking if she had to? A sane person would just replace it, right? And even if he said no, once I heard him complain once, I would have replaced it. That way, if he did complain, I could immediately ask him about the one I replaced. OP says, commenting here because this is the most voted comment about this subject. I understand the assumption that I allow my toddler to freely run around people's homes, but that is not the case. In this specific situation, my son started running around seconds before the accident happened. I just wasn't quick enough to stop him. In subsequent visits to anyone, including my father, my husband and I have managed to stop him sooner. My son is generally a quiet kid, so this behavior isn't that common. Also, I offered to replace the vase more than once that day. He said no, so I didn't buy one. After that refusal, I had no reason to believe my father still wanted me to replace that vase. If someone gave me a similar offer and I declined, I would not expect them to go through with it, nor would I blame them for not doing so. In response to a deleted comment, Obi explains why this has become a problem now. They say, I haven't mentioned the vase in months. My father is the only one doing so. The only reason I'm getting involved now is because his comments are getting worse. How old is your dad? Hostility and personality changes can be linked to dementia. And OP says 60. Yeah, I'm just going for an easy, I don't think you're the asshole for this one. I think his behavior is ridiculous. And I do think that he knows it. He's wanting his cake and eating it too. Oh no, you don't have to replace the vase, but screw you. You're dead to me. Your child is dead to me because of the damage that you've done. But don't replace the vase, it's fine. What do you want from me, old man? Hey, old geezer? What is your endgame? And then imagine if he replaces it himself with a really expensive version and then continues on top of you saying, look at how you forced me to spend all this money to fix the mistake that your child made. Shame on you. Obviously, I'm projecting a little bit there and I'm extrapolating the situation. But, I don't think that that is stranger than fiction. I think that that's a possibility, and people that go looking for a fight will look for extra ammunition in situations like this, absolutely. So definitely not the arsehole for doing it, and I think the previous comment saying you should have just replaced it anyway after the first one to get him off your back, I think that's something that I will employ in the future. And now, onto the updates. After reading your comments, I decided to offer to buy my father a new vase again. I explicitly told him this would be the last time that I would make that offer. If he said no and continued to complain about it, he wouldn't be allowed to see my son until he had calmed down. He eventually agreed. The store he bought the original vase from does not exist anymore, so I started doing some research. I found one that I thought was very similar at a furniture store near my place. I'd bought vases from them before, so I knew they had great quality. On Saturday, we went on our monthly lunch at my father's place and took the opportunity to give him the new vase. He seemed grateful at the time and had a cute moment with my son as they filled it up with the corks. I thought this was done, but the next day my father called me. He had looked up the new vase online and noticed that it was less expensive than he expected. Then he asked, "Are you sure this is the best you could find?" That's when I said screw it, I'm done with his passive aggressiveness. I told my father that we are no longer going to his place for anything. If he wants to see my family, he can come to ours. He protested, but I held my ground. My father did not communicate his wishes at any point and still complained about the outcome. I'm done watching my family be accused of being bad people, and I don't want this behavior to extend to my son any more than it already has. So this is where we stand now. My father doesn't like driving to my place, so I'm not sure about the future of our monthly lunches. I love my father, but I'm extremely disappointed in him. If all this means is that I'll see him less than usual for a little while, I might be a little bit glad. The time apart might be good for us. My greatest concern is my son's relationship with his grandfather, which I will try to encourage. The vase I bought would roughly translate to $100 USD. I don't live in the US. My father told me that he doesn't remember the original's price, only that it was more expensive than that. He was also not attached to the vase itself, but to the corks that were inside it, which he managed to salvage. I'm certain of the new vase's quality. In the comments, Art Shapiro says, "Not the asshole." Wow. Unless the new vase is obviously shoddy, which isn't the case from your description, his behavior is bizarrely ridiculous. I think you've made the best possible solution to this issue. At this point, it's up to him to humble up. OP says, "I don't regret buying the vase, but I've done my part. I'd never react to this the way my father did, and I'm very confident about its quality." Not the asshole. He says he's over it, but he keeps bringing it up. It's the same thing as somebody doing you a favor and never letting you hear the end of it. Did they really do you a favor? He was fine with the vase until he looked at the price. What difference does the price make if he was originally okay with it? The level of pettiness is amazing. So the price of the vase is more important to him than a relationship with his grandchild. Nice. Your kid's better off not being exposed to that kind of bullshit. Not the asshole. He had looked up the new vase online and noticed it was less expensive than he expected. Who does that with a family member when they've done their best to put things right? My greatest concern is my son's relationship with his grandfather, which I'll try to encourage. Kudos for that, but your dad needs to realize what's important and make an effort. OP says, "I'm hoping he does. I grew up pretty distant from all my grandparents, so it's always been important to me that my kid gets to be closer to his family. That said, I'm very well aware that it's my father's responsibility to make an actual effort here. Please make sure that your son doesn't become the butt of Grandpa's 'here's the little shit who breaks things' jokes. A funny family story can leave a permanent imprint on the targets." This gives me flashbacks of how I was made to feel horrible for losing the pitch pipe that came with my great-grandfather's violin. Like, my dad lost his right to the family heirloom because my grandmother was so offended. I looked up the cost of the replacement pipe, in its original box, $4 on eBay. My grandmother made me feel like a monster over $4. Opie, I'd like to throw you a different line. Have you considered the fact that your dad might have dementia? A dementia patient can fixate on things and ask repetitive questions about them. It's just now occurred to me that your dad may well be experiencing early signs of dementia. If it is, you can get him into treatment which may slow the progression of the disease. I'm a social worker who works with dementia patients. I know people like this. They are never happy with any solution and just want to complain to be the center of attention. Exhausting and good riddance to him. Same. I could see it pretty much immediately since those like him imprinted on my brain. What gets to me is he lied. He was lying at his own party, saying they never offered to replace it. That's how we can tell he's a whiner who gets off on it. Yeah, he's displayed some pretty disgusting attitude, just, oh no, woe is me, the world is against me. I don't even remember them offering to replace it. My family sucks. Can someone please listen to me? I think going low contact and letting this one settle for a bit is the best choose your battles kind of thing that you can do here, OP. Although his new battle of this isn't expensive enough for me really is ridiculous, and I don't know a good solution to that one. If you guys have a good solution to that one in the comments besides screaming abuse at him and saying nothing ever makes you happy, does it? Please let me know, because that's what I want to do. I want to have a full-on family domestic with this guy. Because seriously, that grinds my gears. I'm sorry, that's so annoying. Still not the asshole.